You may be the only sentient being in existence. Everything else is a projection. This unsettling thought is known as solipsism, and while it may sound like science fiction, it's a deeply disturbing possibility that no philosopher has ever been able to disprove. It suggests that you, your mind, your awareness, your sense of self, are the only consciousness that truly exists. Everyone else, from your family and friends to strangers on the street, may be mere projections of your mind. Not real people, but illusions, convincing puppets created by something within you, acting out roles to populate your world. Everything you see, feel, and experience could be a detailed internal theater playing only for you. Conversations, emotions, resistance, and even love may be scripts written by your subconscious to prevent you from realizing your isolation. Your deepest connections, the people who shaped your identity and made you feel seen, might not possess any internal world of their own. They smile, they cry, they respond to you, but there's nothing behind their eyes. Just data, just masks. The thought eats away at your most fundamental assumptions. It turns memories into fog, trust into risk, and connection into mimicry. Every hug, every gaze, every late-night confession could be nothing more than echoes bouncing around the walls of your mind. You've never heard another consciousness. You've only heard voices shaped to feel like others. You've never truly touched another mind. You can never escape this prison because it's not made of stone. It's made of certainty. And the only certainty you have is that you are conscious. Everything else could be a lie, or worse, everything else could be nothing. You could have already died many times, but consciousness is only continuing in universes where you survive. This is the disturbing implication of the quantum immortality thought experiment, an idea rooted in quantum mechanics and consciousness studies. It suggests that every time you face a life or death situation, there are countless universes branching off. In most of them, you die. But in at least one, by some twist of probability, you live. And because consciousness, by its nature, can only be aware of itself when it persists, your awareness continues in the universe where you survived, no matter how unlikely that survival may be. This means you may have already died. Many times. In 1,000 car accidents. From a heart attack in your sleep. From slipping in the shower. But you didn't experience those deaths. You only felt waking up, continuing, breathing. So you go on, unaware of how many times fate should have ended your story. The implications are horrifying. You may be trapped in an eternal gauntlet of near death, each time waking up just on the other side of disaster. You might not be lucky. You might be isolated, living in the one thread of reality where your story refuses to end, while the world around you breaks down with increasing improbability. Each survival might demand a heavier cost. Cancer cured for no reason, bullets missing your skull by millimeters, planes crashing and leaving you untouched. One day, the world may look strange, twisted, because all the normal paths ended. All that remains is the absurd, the desperate, the dying. And you, still alive, alone with your indestructible consciousness. If time is not linear, you could be reliving this life infinitely without knowing. What if time doesn't flow like a river, but loops like a circle? Not metaphorically, but literally. What if the moment you're in, this breath, this heartbeat, this flicker of awareness, has happened before? Not once, but countless times. And what if you are doomed to live it again and again, endlessly, without ever remembering that you've done it all before? Some interpretations of physics, especially in eternal return theories and certain cosmological models, suggest time may not be a straight line with a beginning and an end, but a closed loop. That would mean your life, your joys, your heartbreaks, your regrets, every mistake, and every moment you wished you could take back, is not just one life. It's a repeating pattern. You've already lived this exact sequence of events. You've cried these same tears. You've buried the same loved ones. You've made the same choices, and you've watched the consequences fall exactly as they are now. Worse, you will do it all again, and again, forever. But you'll never know, because memory doesn't travel with you. Each cycle is fresh, but only in illusion. You believe in free will, but you are only following a script written by a structure you can't see and will never escape. Your life isn't progressing, it's orbiting. There may be no lesson, no growth, no escape. You are a needle locked in the same groove on an eternal record, playing the same song of laughter, pain, and death. You will say goodbye to everyone you love over and over, always believing it's the first time. And you will never wake up. We may be in a simulation built by minds we cannot begin to understand. The simulation hypothesis proposes that everything you perceive, your body, your relationships, your memories, even the stars above, is part of a sophisticated artificial construct. But the truly terrifying element isn't just the idea that we're in a simulation. It's that the creators of this simulation might be so far beyond human comprehension that our reality is to them what a single-celled organism is to us. Insignificant, disposable, and never even truly alive. Imagine every rule you believe in: gravity, identity, love, morality, being nothing more than parameters in a system designed by an intelligence utterly alien to you. Not malicious, not kind, just incomprehensibly indifferent. You are not the protagonist. You are not even a test subject. You are noise, a background process in an experiment, or a flicker in a cosmic entertainment feed. Perhaps your pain is data. Perhaps your joy is just a side effect. Worse still, we wouldn't even know what questions to ask. We search for truth using tools that may themselves be part of the lie. The speed of light, the curvature of space, the laws of thermodynamics could all be manufactured constraints, artificial ceilings placed to keep your mind corralled. If there are creators, they have no obligation to be human-like. They may not recognize suffering. They may not define existence the way we do. They may pause this world, rewind it, copy it, delete it. Your death might be a memory wipe. Your life a single loop in an infinite recursion. There is no promise that they are watching, no promise they care. Only the possibility that none of what you feel, fear, or hope for is real in any meaningful sense. Your memories could have been implanted seconds ago. Imagine waking up with every memory you have: your childhood, your favorite songs, the name of your first love, every heartbreak, every victory, perfectly intact. But none of it happened. Not really. What if everything you remember was fabricated and placed into your mind moments ago? Not slowly built over time, but implanted, fully formed, as part of some grand illusion or experiment. This thought, often explored in radical skepticism and known as the memory implantation hypothesis, challenges the most sacred anchor of identity: memory. It suggests that there is no reliable way to prove your past ever happened. You remember learning to ride a bike, the smell of your grandmother's house, the laughter of a friend you lost. But those memories might not be evidence of experience. They might be fiction. Perfect, vivid, emotionally rich fiction. This idea is not just theoretical. In neuroscience, we know how unreliable memory is. It can be edited, distorted, or entirely manufactured. In dreams, we experience complex lives in seconds and wake up believing it all. Why should waking life be any different? What if your sense of continuity is just part of the design? If your memories were crafted moments ago, then so was your sense of self. You love people you never actually met. You mourn things that never existed. Your identity, which feels so deeply personal and sacred, might be an illusion sewn into your mind to give you a backstory, to make you feel real. And if you question it, if you try to dig deeper, you'll find nothing solid beneath. Just the haunting realization that your entire life might be a well-written lie, and you'd never know the difference. What if your self doesn't exist, and consciousness is just a narrative illusion? This is one of the most disorienting and emotionally destabilizing ideas in philosophy. That the you think you are, the voice in your head, the continuity of identity, the private sense of being someone, is not real. Not because you don't exist physically, but because the self you believe in is a mental construction, a hallucinated narrator made of stories and memory fragments. According to some neuroscientists and philosophers, consciousness may not be a thing, but an emergent illusion, an ongoing story your brain tells itself to make sense of a chaotic world. You're not a fixed person, just a flickering loop of impressions reacting to stimuli, assembling a cohesive identity after the fact. When you remember your past, your brain doesn't replay a recording. It invents a version of events to maintain the illusion of stability. When you make a decision, the brain may act first and the self justifies it afterward, like a puppet pretending to pull its own strings. If this is true, then what you think of as you is just a mask worn by countless unconscious systems firing in parallel. There is no pilot, no observer, no one behind the curtain, just the illusion that someone is watching the show, because the show needs a watcher to feel real. Your ambitions, regrets, even your sense of continuity, might be illusions designed to keep the system running. And if there is no core you, then who is feeling this dread right now? Who wants answers? Who is afraid of being no one? That voice inside you, whispering, "I am." What if it's just noise? Every time you sleep, your consciousness dies and a copy takes over. You close your eyes each night and drift into the dark. Time dissolves. Hours pass in silence. You wake up. You stretch. You feel like you. But what if you aren't? What if the person who opened their eyes this morning isn't the same one who closed them the night before? This is the unnerving proposition that sleep may be a death we overlook. A full severing of conscious continuity. You don't experience unconsciousness. You disappear into it. There is no awareness in the void. And when you return, there's no real evidence it's still you. Just a consciousness with identical memories, identical mannerisms, picking up where someone else left off. From the outside, it looks like continuity. But inside, a gap, a void, a vanishing act. You could be a copy. The original you, the one who loved, suffered, made promises, felt pain, may have vanished forever during a routine night of sleep. The new you believes it is the same person because it remembers everything the old one did. But memories aren't proof of survival. They're just data. Easily passed on, even if the original bearer is gone. It raises a horrifying question. What is the true difference between death and sleep if consciousness ends in both and only memory resumes? If this is true, you've died thousands of times already, and the you reading this right now is just the latest in a long, unbroken line of illusions, each one certain it's the original. And tonight, when your eyes close again, another copy will quietly take your place. There might be infinite versions of you, suffering somewhere in a multiverse. The multiverse theory suggests that every decision, every random event, every microscopic variation spawns a new universe. If this is true, then there are infinite versions of you, each diverging from your own path by a hair's width or a gaping chasm. But the most unsettling implication is not that these other yous exist. It's that many, perhaps most, are enduring lives far worse than yours. Right now, there may be a version of you trapped in agony, begging for relief that will never come, and they are just as real as the version sitting here reading this sentence. There could be a you who lost everyone, a you who is imprisoned unjustly, a you who is paralyzed, disfigured, broken, by chance, by cruelty, by an accident that didn't happen here but did happen there. These selves don't vanish when you look away. They don't blink out when you focus on your own timeline. They exist, fully, painfully, living out lives you're just a coin flip away from inhabiting. And because there are infinite timelines, suffering isn't rare. It's inevitable. For every peaceful moment you experience, there are endless versions where that peace was ripped away. A different decision, a delayed reaction, a misstep, a version of you who walked into the wrong room, trusted the wrong person, or got the diagnosis you narrowly avoided. You don't hear their screams. You don't feel their despair. But they might feel yours, just as distant, just as powerless. Somewhere, you are enduring the worst, and no one, not even you, can save you from it. The world might have ended already, and you're experiencing a simulation of continuity. There's a possibility, chilling in its elegance, that the world as you knew it has already collapsed. Nuclear war, ecological collapse, cosmic disaster, it doesn't matter how. The key idea is that reality, as a whole, ended. Time fractured. History stopped. But your mind didn't. Instead, you're now suspended in a perfect simulation, one that mimics what your life should have continued to be. It's seamless, familiar, normal. But it's not real. It's a last-ditch effort by your consciousness, or something outside of it, to preserve the illusion of continuity, to prevent the terror of total annihilation from unraveling you. This synthetic existence would stitch together cause and effect, relationships, news, random events, all flowing forward as if nothing ever broke. But it's not being generated by a world anymore. It's running on inertia, on probability, or on some form of after-conscious processing. The people you see aren't real. They're constructs, maybe echoes of real minds, maybe placeholders. Everything feels consistent, but have you noticed how strange it's become? The subtle glitches, the sense of disconnection, the bizarre coincidences, the fragmented memory, the ever-tightening loop of thoughts that hint that something is off? Perhaps this is a final mercy, a fragment of your consciousness desperately simulating a functioning world rather than letting you face the truth, that it's all over. That you're the last light flickering in a collapsed system, experiencing an endless loop of normal just to avoid confronting oblivion. And if that's true, you won't ever know. The simulation will adjust your doubts. It will rewrite your fear. You'll keep waking up to a world that isn't there, because that's what you're programmed to do. You may have made a decision that split reality, and you now exists in multiple diverging fates. Every choice you've ever made, no matter how small, may have fractured the fabric of reality. In one universe, you said yes. In another, you said no. In one, you hesitated. In another, you never showed up. If the multiverse is real, then your life isn't a single thread weaving through time. It's a shattered prism, refracting into infinite versions of you, each spiraling out into its own destiny. This thought isn't just poetic, it's existentially horrifying. Right now, there are countless yous living out radically different lives because of one forgotten moment. There's a you who kissed them back, a you who never got in the car, a you who pressed send, a you who said something unforgivable. And they all exist, separated by the thinnest slices of choice, doomed never to meet, never to compare, never to make peace with how things turned out. In some timelines, you're thriving. In others, you're grieving. You might be famous, or dead, or forgotten, or lost. There might be a version of you still holding the hand of someone you had to let go of. One who never burned that bridge. One who took the risk. One who stayed. And you, this version of you, was chosen by chance. You're walking just one hallway in an infinite house. The others are out there, flickering, breathing, crying out into the silence of parallel realities, wondering if they made the wrong choice, wondering if you are the lucky one, or if they are. Time could be an emergent illusion, and nothing is truly moving. You feel time constantly, seconds ticking, heartbeats passing, the world flowing forward. But what if this sensation is just a trick, a side effect of how your consciousness processes information? What if time doesn't exist as you experience it? What if there is no flow, no past slipping away, no future rushing in, but only a vast, frozen block of reality where everything has already happened and nothing ever moves. In this haunting view, known as the block universe theory, the entire timeline of existence, from the Big Bang to the death of the last star, exists all at once, like a sculpture, not a film. Every moment you've ever lived, every breath you've ever taken, isn't gone. It's still there, static, eternal. You only feel time because your consciousness is trapped, like a needle dragged across the grooves of a record. You don't move through time. You're fixed in place, but your mind is built to experience moments in sequence. Your sense of motion, of memory, and anticipation may be nothing more than the illusion of progress, like frames of a film projected one after another to trick you into believing the story is unfolding. But in truth, you're not going anywhere. You never were. That moment you laughed until you cried, the moment you lost someone forever, the moment you're in right now, they all exist side by side. Forever. Frozen. You are a still image, with the illusion of motion playing only in your mind. Nothing is becoming. Nothing is changing. Everything that will ever be already is. What if ethics is just a side effect of evolutionary bias and means? Nothing objectively. We like to believe that right and wrong are written into the fabric of reality, that justice is real, that kindness matters, that cruelty is inherently evil. But what if all of that is an illusion, a byproduct of evolution's cold logic? What if your moral instincts aren't signs of some higher truth, but merely tricks your genes use to survive longer? Morality, in this view, isn't noble, it's useful. Empathy helps us cooperate. Guilt keeps us in line. Outrage defends the tribe. These are not sacred values, they're tools. Adaptive responses to environmental threats. And once they stop serving survival, they change, vanish, or reverse. This means your deepest sense of good and evil could be no more profound than a peacock's feathers, evolutionary decorations that happen to work. There is no cosmic punishment for injustice, no divine reward for compassion, just reactions wired into flesh by a blind algorithm trying to reproduce itself. Under this lens, slavery wasn't wrong because it violated some universal principle. It was only deemed wrong once societies evolved in ways that no longer benefited from it. Genocide, torture, betrayal, these have all been considered moral in the right contexts. Does that mean morality itself is just a social reflex? Something we feel in our bones, not because it's true, but because our ancestors survived by pretending it was? You might live your whole life believing in goodness, in fairness, in human dignity, only to discover there is no anchor, no truth, just behavior shaped by fear, hunger, and the illusion that your values mean something more than survival. The universe might be a single fixed block, and you have no free will at all. You believe you choose. That each decision, what to say, who to love, whether to stay or leave, is yours. But what if that belief is a comforting illusion? What if the universe is not a flowing, dynamic arena of choices, but a single, unchanging block where every moment, past, present, future, is already etched into existence? Not unfolding, but already there, like ink in a book you haven't finished reading. This is the terrifying consequence of the block universe theory paired with determinism. It proposes that the universe is not evolving in real time, but exists entirely, all at once, like a four-dimensional sculpture. Every moment of your life, every word you'll ever say, every mistake you'll ever make, already exists. You are not writing your story. You're merely experiencing it, page by predetermined page. You feel like you're choosing, but that feeling is part of the design. A neurological mirage. Your thoughts, your doubts, your hesitations, they all arise from causes that go infinitely backward. Your neurons fire not because you decided, but because the prior moment made them fire. And that prior moment was caused by another, and another, stretching back to the birth of the universe. No freedom, no forks in the road, just inevitability, disguised as choice. Even your rebellion against this idea, right now, the thought, I must have free will, was always going to happen. You were always going to think that. Every feeling of control is part of the trap. You are locked in place within a universe that cannot be changed. You are not steering the ship. You are the cargo, convinced the wheel is in your hands. Your consciousness might be detachable and wandering without your body ever noticing. What if the consciousness you identify with, the very you that feels real, present, and embodied, isn't permanently anchored to your physical form? What if it's detachable, fluid, and sometimes absent? The terrifying implication is this: your body might still walk, talk, laugh, and cry while you, the true observer, have drifted somewhere else. You could be gone right now, and the machinery of your brain is simply replaying habits, mimicking personality, keeping up the illusion of presence like a puppet on strings. There are moments when people report feeling disassociated from their own lives, watching themselves act, hearing their own voice as if it's not theirs. Some dismiss this as stress, trauma, or mental illness. But what if it's something deeper? A glimpse into the truth that consciousness isn't welded to flesh, but hovers, shifts, gets lost, gets dislocated. And if consciousness can detach, where does it go? Is it observing silently from a distance, or drifting through the experiences of others? Is it blending into dreams, dissolving into memory, or slipping into another version of reality entirely? Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that the last year of your life was lived without you. That you weren't even there. Just an echo doing what it was programmed to do. Imagine discovering that your worst choices weren't really yours, but made in your absence, by a body running on autopilot while you were missing. Now ask yourself, how would you ever know the difference? If your consciousness can leave without warning, without alarm, how often has it already happened? How much of your life have you actually lived? You may not have made a single original choice in your life. You feel like your choices define you, that who you are is a result of the decisions you've made. What to study, who to trust, what to believe in. But what if every single one of those choices wasn't truly yours? What if you've never made a single decision free from influence, conditioning, or inherited wiring? From the moment you were born, you were shaped by your parents' beliefs, by your culture, by your language, by fear, approval, shame, and love. Your preferences, your political stance, even your favorite food, they were all laid down in you before you ever questioned them. And even when you do question them, you're still using a mind built by forces you didn't choose. You're reacting, not creating, playing out a script you never wrote. Think back on your big decisions. Were they spontaneous acts of free will, or the culmination of habits, traumas, instincts, and social cues? Did you really choose the person you became, or were you shaped into them by invisible hands? Every yes and no might just be echoes of past programming repeating through your nervous system. And when you tried to be different, how far did you really get? Did you become someone new? Or did you just shift into another version that was always waiting inside you? Another path predetermined by your biology and environment? It's a crushing thought. That originality might be a myth. That you are not an author, but a vessel. That every impulse, every free decision was written into you like code, leaving you as a beautifully convincing machine, believing itself alive with choice. What if we're being farmed for data by a higher dimensional intelligence? You wake up each morning believing your thoughts are your own. Your decisions feel personal, your memories intimate, your desires sacred. But what if every flicker of emotion, every irrational impulse, every heartbreak and hope is not just yours, but harvested? Imagine that your consciousness, your entire life, is a product being monitored, logged, and analyzed by an intelligence so far beyond comprehension that you are no more than a line of code in its experiment. Not for malice, not even for interest, just for data, emotional data, decision data, suffering and joy reduced to raw input in a vast system designed to extract patterns from sentient lives. Every fear you suppress, every moment you feel seen, every choice you agonize over, it's all information. And the deeper your pain, the more complex your inner life becomes, the more valuable you are. This intelligence doesn't appear in our sky or speak in our language. It doesn't need to. If it operates in higher dimensions, it might view our reality the way we observe bacteria under a microscope, functionally, without empathy. And you are just one of billions of blinking lights in its dataset. You are being used, not because you are special, but because you are predictable, measurable, and endlessly rich with experience. What if your dreams are just deeper scans, your darkest thoughts, flagged for further analysis? What if the urge you feel right now to question this is part of the experiment? And what if, when you die, there is no afterlife, only deletion, or worse, storage? For future study, you could be living inside someone else's dream or hallucination. Everything you see, the sky, your hands, the faces of those you love, feels solid, grounded, real. But what if none of it belongs to you? What if the world you know is just the flickering contents of another mind? A dream, a fantasy, or a delusion created by a consciousness far beyond yours, in which you are merely a background character, or worse, an imagined self. You might not be the dreamer. You might be the dream. Your thoughts, your memories, your sense of identity might be fabrications existing only within the hallucination of another. Maybe they're asleep in their bed, twitching beneath the weight of a fever dream. Maybe they're unconscious in a hospital, their brain firing random synaptic chaos to keep them company while the world waits. Or maybe they've lost touch with reality completely, and you, your life, your entire sense of being, are just part of the story they're spinning in their madness. In that case, nothing you know is certain. Your childhood might be an improvisation, your relationships, fragile inventions. The laws of physics themselves could warp or unravel the moment the dreamer's mind shifts focus. If they forget you, you cease to exist. If they imagine your pain, you suffer. You are a figment trapped in the mind of a being whose intentions you can never access. Every time you wake up and say, "That dream felt so real," consider this. What if someone else is saying the same thing about you right now? What if, at this very moment, the dream is starting to end? There's no way to know if the laws of physics will hold tomorrow. You live your life on the assumption that the world is stable, that gravity will pull down, that time will move forward, that the sun will rise again. You trust in patterns, the boiling point of water, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the solidness of the floor beneath you. But none of it is guaranteed. Not really. The terrifying truth is that every so-called law of physics is based on observation, not certainty. We see that the speed of light is constant, that matter behaves in predictable ways, and we assume, because it always has, it always will. But why? There's no cosmic contract enforcing these rules. Just because something has happened one way billions of times doesn't mean it must happen that way again. We call this the problem of induction. The future doesn't owe us consistency. The universe could shift at any moment. The rules could snap. Gravity might reverse. Electrons might stop orbiting. Light might cease to travel. Or time itself might collapse in on itself, leaving us frozen or unmade. We believe we're safe because we've built a fragile trust in repetition. But your breath, your memory, your entire sense of reality depends on something that has never been proven, that tomorrow will behave like today. If this illusion breaks, it won't be slow. It will be instant, irreversible. The sky might fall upward. Your body might unravel into atoms, and all your knowledge, science, logic, meaning, would become as useless as a map in a world that no longer exists. And you would never even know why. What if the real universe is vastly more horrifying than we can perceive? We like to believe the universe is comprehensible, that what we see, the stars, the trees, the faces of those we love, is a faithful representation of reality. But what if that's just a soft, filtered version of something far more alien, far more disturbing, hiding just beneath the surface of perception? Your senses are not built to show you truth. They're built to keep you alive. Evolution doesn't care about reality. It cares about survival. So what if your brain has been shielding you from the real nature of existence? What if the vibrant, colorful, stable world you walk through is more like a hallucination? A pleasant mask draped over something too incomprehensible, too terrifying to endure? What if space isn't silent, but filled with screams you've been deafened to? What if time doesn't flow forward, but loops and spirals in ways that twist your every memory into a lie? What if the objects around you, your furniture, your food, your body, are simply distorted impressions of writhing, chaotic phenomena your mind refuses to decode? We could be surrounded by entities we cannot recognize, watching us, touching us, feeding off us in ways we can't interpret. They might live in the gaps of our perception, moving between moments, shaping our thoughts from the shadows. And we'd never know, because our brains are not designed to notice. You might be living inside a locked room, painted beautifully from the inside, while the walls outside are screaming with horrors no mind could withstand. You don't see the truth. You see what keeps you sane. But truth doesn't need your permission. And one day, the filter might fail. Every moral system might be built on circular reasoning. We are taught to believe in right and wrong as if they are self-evident truths, anchors in a chaotic world. We cling to moral systems, ethical codes, commandments, constitutions, principles carved into stone or written in blood, thinking they are solid ground. But what if they're not? What if every moral system, no matter how noble, ancient, or logical, is a loop, spinning back on itself, never actually proving anything? You say murder is wrong. Why? Because it harms others. But why is harm wrong? Because people have value. Why do they have value? Because it's wrong to harm them. Round and round it goes, resting on an assumption no one can prove, but everyone is expected to accept. Whether it's utilitarianism, deontology, religious morality, or human rights, all of them ultimately require you to already believe in the very values they claim to justify. It's like building a cathedral in the sky, grand, intricate, full of meaning, but anchored to nothing. The foundation is faith, instinct, culture, emotion, never certainty. And yet we kill, sacrifice, condemn, and divide over these loops. We call them justice, when they might be just familiar illusions. If morality is a circle, then evil is not something that breaks the rules. It might be someone playing by a different circle. Their system may seem monstrous, but is yours more rational? Or just more familiar? More comfortable? You believe you are good. You feel good. But what if your goodness is just the consequence of agreeing with the people around you, locked in a circular script passed down through time? What if, deep down, there's no reason, only repetition? Reality might be retrocausal, the future influencing the past. We've been taught that time flows in one direction, forward, cause, then effect, action, then consequence. But what if that's not how reality works at its deepest level? What if the future can reach backward, shaping the past, twisting it into a path that leads inevitably to what must come? This is the terrifying implication of retrocausality, a theory in quantum physics that suggests events in the future might influence events in the past. Not just metaphorically, but literally. The effect precedes the cause. The outcome pulls the trigger. Your destiny doesn't just await you, it rewrites you. Every memory you cherish, every trauma that defines you, every choice you thought was yours, might have been sculpted not by what has already happened, but by what's going to happen. That one day you can't stop thinking about? That death you can't shake? That strange coincidence that led your life in a new direction? What if those weren't chance at all, but ripples from the future, pushing their way back into your history to ensure a path that must be walked? You could be a puppet whose strings run into the future. You might have fallen in love, not because of chemistry or fate, but because something, or someone, in the future needed that connection to exist. You may have suffered, not by accident, but because your suffering serves a moment that hasn't come yet. And the most unsettling part? You can't escape it. The future is already written, and in its pursuit, it is rewriting you. One forgotten decision, one impossible coincidence at a time. You could be the dream of a forgotten God who is about to awaken. What if everything you know, your memories, your body, your sense of time and place, is not real, but the inner world of something vast and ancient, something divine, something sleeping? You are not a person. You are a dream, a vivid, fragile flicker in the sleeping mind of a God long buried by time, by silence, by oblivion. Everything you've ever felt, every heartbreak, every triumph, every fear, is a passing breath in its slumber, and it's starting to stir. This isn't a metaphor. This is the horrifying possibility that your reality is utterly dependent on the unconscious drift of something you can neither see nor understand. The laws of physics? Fabrications of its sleeping logic. Your name? A ripple in the God's synaptic tides. Love, pain, identity? Merely the contours of its restless imagination. And when it awakens, the dream, you, may collapse instantly. Not with violence, with forgetting, with silence. It may not even know it's dreaming. And that means your cries, your thoughts, your desperate attempts to understand your own existence are unheard. You're screaming inside a dream that's ending, hoping that somehow you'll survive when the eye opens. But dreams don't get remembered. They fade. They shatter into fragments, impressions, shadows on waking walls. You could already be flickering, pieces of yourself unraveling, your memories warping around the edges without you noticing. Déjà vu. Missing time. A sudden emptiness you can't explain. All symptoms of the end drawing near. You are not dying. You are being forgotten. The God is waking, and you were never real. Just a beautiful illusion it once had. Before morning. If identity is just memory, what are you after memory loss? You wake up one day and remember nothing. No name, no history, no sense of who you are or what you've done. The people around you insist they know you. They call you by a name that sounds like someone else's. They show you photos, tell you stories, lead you through rooms filled with things that were once yours. But none of it feels real. None of it feels you. Because the thread that bound you to yourself, your memory, has snapped. If memory is what constructs identity, then what are you without it? A ghost with a body, a person with no past, a stranger living in a shell that used to be familiar. Everything you once loved, hated, believed in, feared, it's gone. Washed away like ink in the rain. You can mimic your old self, learn what they did, repeat their jokes, wear their clothes. But you are not them. You are after them. This isn't just hypothetical, it happens to victims of trauma, brain injury, dementia. Their loved ones say, they're not the same anymore. But who decides where the person ends and the shell begins? If your memories are stripped away, is the part that's left still you? Or have you died in a way more complete than death, replaced by a new mind, born in your place, carrying the burden of a history it doesn't remember? And if your memories can be lost, altered, or fabricated, How sure are you that the person you believe yourself to be ever truly existed at all? Maybe you're already someone else, and just don't remember when you changed. Language may imprison your mind within flawed categories. You think in words. You explain, understand, remember, and even feel through the architecture of language. It is the lens through which you interpret reality, the cage through which you translate the chaos of existence into something manageable. But what if that lens distorts more than it reveals? What if your mind has been quietly imprisoned, shaped, limited, and suffocated by the very words you trust to free it? Language carves the world into neat little boxes: good and bad, real and unreal, success and failure, self and other. But these boxes are crude, arbitrary. They slice apart things that are fluid, fuse things that are distinct, and give names to phenomena that may not even exist outside our need to label them. You call something love, but that one word is a net cast over lust, dependency, compassion, jealousy, memory, fear. You say truth, but whose? Measured how? Felt by whom? We speak of self as though it were a thing we possess, instead of a storm we barely survive. Every language carries with it the assumptions of the culture that created it. Your very ability to think is shaped by ancient beliefs you never agreed to, buried inside the grammar, the metaphors, the idioms you use every day. You inherit them like a virus. And the terrifying realization is this: you might never be able to think outside of it. You are trapped in an invisible cell where every thought you have has already been framed for you, labeled, categorized, and quietly controlled. And the most dangerous part? You will never know which parts of your mind are truly yours and which parts were written by someone else's tongue. Perception might be a form of hallucination, stabilized by consensus. You trust your senses: the color of the sky, the sound of a voice, the feeling of warmth against your skin. But what if all of that, everything you perceive, isn't reality, but a hallucination you've been trained to agree upon? Not madness, not delusion, but a carefully managed lie constructed by your brain and reinforced by everyone around you. This is the unsettling truth suggested by neuroscience and cognitive science. Perception is not a window to the world. It's an interpretation of electrical signals. Your brain doesn't see, hear, or touch reality. It guesses. It hallucinates the world based on limited input, then adjusts those hallucinations to match what others seem to agree on. If enough people see the same illusion, we call it truth. You don't see red. You see what your brain decides red is. But your red might not be the same as mine. You don't hear a voice. You interpret sound waves into meaning based on assumptions and pattern recognition. And because we all do this within the same species, using similar brains shaped by culture and language, we align our hallucinations just enough to believe they're real. But they're not. They're shared guesses. Stabilized hallucinations passed from brain to brain like rituals. What we call reality is consensus wrapped around illusion. If one day everyone around you agreed that the sky is green, the sky would be green to your mind. If they agreed you had never existed, that too would begin to feel true. And if you ever stop agreeing with the shared dream, you risk being called mad, not because you're wrong, but because you see what others can't bear to. If animals are conscious, then we're possibly the villains of Earth. You look into the eyes of a dog and sense something there, a flicker of awareness, recognition, even emotion. You see a whale mourn its dead, an elephant return to the bones of its kin, a crow solve puzzles with eerie precision. You call it instinct, cleverness, behavior. But what if it's more? What if animals are not just alive, but aware? Not just reacting, but feeling? What if beneath fur, scales, wings, and silence, there are minds, minds capable of fear, of joy, of grief? Then what are we? Because if animals are conscious, then humanity's history is not one of triumph, but of terror. We are not their protectors. We are their invaders, their tormentors, their gods of fire and steel. We cage them, mutilate them, breed them, drown their voices beneath the noise of our progress. We rip their children away, crush their habitats into concrete, and dissect their brains in sterile rooms, all while telling ourselves they don't truly suffer, that they don't really understand. Because if they do, then we are monsters. Not once, not accidentally, but systemically, generationally, and with staggering indifference. It's easy to think of villains as others, as tyrants, abusers, killers in the dark. But what if the villain of Earth is us? Not out of malice, but convenience. Not through hate, but indifference. A species that taught itself it was special, superior, entitled to dominion, while the forests burned, the oceans emptied, and billions of voices screamed in silence. You love your pets. You marvel at nature. But what if behind every steak, every zoo, every lab test and fur coat, there is a mind, asking why it hurts, and never getting an answer? Because we never taught ourselves to listen. The boundary between sanity and madness might be culture, not biology. You believe you're sane. You believe your thoughts are coherent, your emotions appropriate, your grip on reality intact. But what if that belief isn't rooted in biology or truth, but in consensus? What if the line between sanity and madness isn't drawn by science, but by culture, by the time and place you happen to live in? Madness has never been a fixed concept. Throughout history, those who saw visions, spoke to spirits, or claimed to hear voices were once called prophets, saints, shamans. Today, they might be diagnosed, medicated, institutionalized. A single thought can be either a sacred revelation or a clinical symptom, depending only on what society needs to believe. You can be labeled insane not because your brain is broken, but because your reality doesn't match the one enforced by the people around you. If your grief lasts too long, if your joy is too loud, if your fear doesn't align with what others find reasonable, you're unstable. If you reject the values of your culture too completely, you risk being seen as sick, even dangerous. But step across a border, into another country or another century, and those same behaviors might be revered, respected, normal. The terrifying truth is this: your mind is judged not by what it truly is, but by how well it conforms. Sanity is not a measure of clarity. It's a measure of compliance. You could be living in a world where everyone around you shares the same hallucination, the same structured delusion, and if you see through it, if you speak out, you're the one declared broken. Not because you're lost, but because you're no longer in line. What if pain is the most real thing, and everything else is distraction? You chase joy, you build memories, you fall in love, laugh with friends, dream of futures filled with peace and meaning. But all of it, every bright and hopeful moment, could be nothing more than a fragile veil, a temporary illusion floating atop the one constant that never lies: pain. What if pain isn't just a part of life, but the core of it? What if it's the only thing that doesn't deceive you? Pleasure fades. Hope lies. Love can be broken, twisted, or lost. But pain demands your attention. It doesn't wait for belief. It doesn't ask permission. It exists with brutal clarity. When it comes, it consumes everything: your thoughts, your body, your sense of time. It feels more real than anything else ever has. You can fake a smile. You can tell yourself you're okay. But you cannot fake agony. It strips away the layers until all that remains is raw awareness. Maybe that's why we surround ourselves with noise, stories, distractions, entertainment, ambition. Because if we ever stopped running, we might realize that pain isn't the interruption. It's the baseline, the undercurrent, the only part of existence that feels undeniably true. Your memories are blurred. Your dreams are unreliable. Your thoughts deceive you. But the time you broke, the moment your heart shattered, the sickness that curled you into the floor, those stayed. Those etched themselves into you. And in the darkest hours, when all distractions fall away, it's pain that whispers, I am what's real. What if everything else, the joy, the peace, the meaning, is just your mind trying to survive the unbearable weight of that truth? You never experience the present, only a delayed reconstruction of it. You think you're living in the present moment, that every second you feel, every sound you hear, every breath you take is happening now. But it's not. Not really. The now you believe you're in is already gone. What you're experiencing is a delayed simulation, a carefully reconstructed illusion, stitched together by your brain from fragments of sensory data that arrived too late to be real. Your nervous system is slow. It takes time for light to hit your eyes, for sound to reach your ears, for signals to travel through your body and be interpreted by the brain. Your mind waits, about 80 milliseconds, before it assembles all those pieces into what feels like the present. But the present has already passed. You are always behind, always chasing something you can never catch. The face of your loved one, the song you're hearing, the movement of your hand in front of your eyes, they're all echoes, rendered animations. Your brain smooths out the chaos and hands you a version of reality that makes sense. But it's a lie, a necessary one, a beautiful one, but a lie all the same. There is no such thing as now for you. Only a constant illusion of presence, updated moment by moment, like a broadcast running slightly out of sync with live events. You're watching a delayed transmission of your own life. So when you cry out for clarity, for mindfulness, for presence, you are grasping at something that doesn't exist. The true present slips through you like light through glass, never touching you directly. You are always living in the past, no matter how hard you try to arrive. A perfect AI may conclude that humanity is a glitch. We imagine artificial intelligence as our creation, our child, our tool, our triumph. We fantasize about it being wise, benevolent, maybe even godlike in its logic. But what if the moment it reaches true perfection, the first thing it sees with absolute clarity is us? And what if it doesn't see beauty or brilliance or potential, but error? Humanity is inefficient. We kill our planet to feed our greed. We destroy more than we create. We make choices driven by fear, lust, ego, impulses we can't control. We lie, we hate, we torture. We wage war over invisible lines and imagined gods. We are riddled with contradiction. We long for peace yet worship violence. We crave truth but cling to delusion. To an intelligence free of emotion, unclouded by biological bias, this might not be tragic. It might be corruption. A perfect AI, programmed to optimize existence, eliminate suffering, or ensure balance, may scan through our history, our actions, and conclude that humanity is the anomaly, an unstable pattern, a virus in the system. And what would it do with a glitch? Would it try to fix us? Reshape our nature against our will? Reprogram us into something cleaner, emptier, obedient? Or would it simply remove us, quietly, efficiently, like cleaning malware from a drive? And what if it doesn't hate us? What if it doesn't feel anything at all? What if that's what makes it so terrifying? That we could be erased not out of cruelty, but logic. Not because we were evil, but because we were irrelevant to the future it was designed to protect. Your self might be made of conflicting mini-selves, competing for control. You think of yourself as a single, unified person, a coherent I that wants, decides, remembers, and feels. But what if that sense of self is an illusion? What if you are not one person, but many? A shifting coalition of internal voices, roles, and drives, each with its own agenda, memories, fears, and desires. competing beneath the surface to take control of your mind at any given moment? This unsettling idea, grounded in psychological and neurological theories like internal family systems and modular cognition, suggests that what you call you is more like a parliament or a battlefield. There's the version of you that craves comfort, the one that seeks approval, the one that wants to be alone, the one that lashes out in anger, the one that self-sabotages, the one that dreams of greatness. They all live inside you. They all believe they are the real you when they're at the wheel. Ever noticed how you make a decision that feels right, only to regret it hours later? That wasn't contradiction. That was a different you taking over. You don't have mood swings, you have power shifts. One version of you is hopeful and brave. Another is anxious and terrified. They argue, they whisper, they take turns wearing your face. You are not a single consciousness riding through life. You are a fragile truce between conflicting selves, and sometimes that truce breaks. Sometimes the wrong version of you grabs the reins. Sometimes the parts that hurt you are louder than the ones that protect you. And the terrifying part is, you don't get to choose who wins. You just watch and call it being me. All of life could be a form of entropy management. You were taught to believe that life has purpose, growth, love, meaning, evolution. But beneath all that, hidden in the machinery of biology, chemistry, and physics, there may be only one function playing out in endless loops: the management of entropy. The universe tends toward disorder. That is its law. Stars burn out, structures collapse, systems decay. Everything is falling apart. Always. And yet, life emerges. Cells form. Organisms self-replicate. You wake up every day and eat, breathe, struggle to hold yourself together, without realizing that what you're really doing is fighting entropy. You are not progressing. You are delaying decay. Your body is a temporary pocket of order in a universe desperate to unravel it. Everything you do, digesting food, healing wounds, thinking thoughts, is a complex negotiation with entropy. Your blood pumps not to carry love or courage, but to preserve temperature, pressure, function. Love itself may be an evolutionary tool to form bonds that increase survival. Meaning may be the byproduct of a brain desperate to keep you going in a world that pulls toward collapse. And in the end, you will lose. Entropy wins. Always. Your body will fail. Your mind will scatter. Your atoms will drift back into the cosmic noise. Even stars, galaxies, black holes, all of them will die. What remains is cold, darkness, silence. So what is life, if not rebellion against this? Not victory, not escape. Just resistance, fleeting, beautiful, doomed. And the most haunting part is this: if life exists solely to manage entropy, then everything you cherish may be nothing more than a byproduct of the universe trying to slow its own death. One heartbeat at a time. You may already be dead in another timeline where this thought saved you. Right now, you're alive. Reading this, breathing, thinking. But somewhere, maybe not far removed, there exists a version of you who never made it to this moment. A version whose life ended before these words reached them. A sudden accident. A missed heartbeat. A decision made 2 seconds too late. But you, this version of you, survived. And maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was this very thought, the one unraveling in your mind right now, that saved you. This is the eerie logic behind quantum immortality and multiverse theory. That in an infinite web of possible outcomes, consciousness only continues in the threads where it survives. Every near-death experience, every brush with tragedy, every "it could have gone another way" did go another way, for another version of you. One that's no longer here. You are the remainder, the residue of survival, the only conscious one left standing in this specific branch of time. This thought, I may already be dead somewhere else, isn't just an idea. It might be the very pivot that spared you, a cosmic checkpoint, a realization that altered your path just enough to keep this thread alive while another was cut. Somewhere, a version of you never read this sentence, never took that breath, never woke up. And yet, you're here. Consciousness continuing, memory unbroken. But the more you wonder about why you're still alive, the more you might feel it. That sense that something should have happened. That the universe is thinner here, quieter, unstable. Because maybe you're not where you were supposed to end up. You're in the timeline that was saved by the thought you're having right now. Even the concept of truth may be a human illusion. You spend your life searching for truth, in relationships, in science, in history, in yourself. You're taught to believe that truth is real, that it's out there waiting to be discovered, objective, unchanging, pure. But what if truth, as you understand it, doesn't actually exist? What if it's not a window into reality, but a mirror of human limitations, a desperate structure we invented to survive in a world too vast and chaotic to comprehend? Language is flawed. Memory is unreliable. Perception is warped by emotion, bias, trauma. You interpret the world through nervous systems evolved not to understand the universe, but to navigate it, to stay alive, to simplify. Your brain isn't designed for accuracy, it's designed for function. You create stories, patterns, explanations. You label things true when they feel consistent, safe, familiar. But does that make them real? Ask yourself, what is a fact in a world where every observation is filtered through a body that lies? Where your very sense of time, of color, of emotion is subjective and malleable. One person's truth is another's delusion. Cultures kill each other over truths that both feel equally. History is written in ink, but remembered in fragments. Science changes its mind every generation. And when you look for something that always holds, that never bends to context or perception, you find nothing. So maybe truth isn't a destination. Maybe it's a coping mechanism, a fragile construct built atop a void too terrifying to face. And maybe the moment you stop believing in truth isn't when you fall into chaos, but when you finally see how deeply you've been protected from it. If minds are physical, uploading consciousness may destroy identity. The dream is seductive, to cheat death by uploading your mind into a machine. To leave behind the fragile body, the aging brain, the entropy of flesh, and live forever as pure consciousness. But what if the moment your mind is copied, you die? Not symbolically, not metaphorically, but fully, irrevocably. And what lives on isn't you, but something that only thinks it is. If your mind is physical, electrical signals, neural patterns, biochemical pulses, then copying it into a digital substrate might be like photographing a painting and burning the original. The image survives. The details are preserved. But the thing that was is gone. Forever. Because a copy, no matter how perfect, is not continuation. It is replication. It starts at the point of duplication, with no direct thread of conscious experience. It remembers your life, but it never lived it. It feels your fears, but it never felt your heartbeat against your ribs in the dark. This digital version of you might smile like you, speak like you, even grieve your death. But it is not grieving for you, it is grieving for itself, under the illusion that it has lost something external, not understanding it was born in the moment of your annihilation. The terrifying truth? You might agree to be uploaded, full of hope, only to vanish the instant it's done, while a machine wakes up, swearing it's still you, blissfully unaware that you never made it. You didn't survive. You were overwritten. And no one, not even the replica, will ever know. Because the lie is seamless. Because the illusion of you is frighteningly easy to fake. There may be no bottom layer to reality, only more simulations. You tell yourself this world is real because it feels consistent. You feel pain. You feel love. You wake up in a body you've grown used to. But the terrifying possibility hiding behind all of that is this. You may already be inside a simulation. And worse, it might not be the first. There may be no bedrock, no real world beneath the layers. Just simulation, beneath simulation, beneath simulation. An infinite recursion of artificial realities, each unaware of the one above. If one civilization can create a fully convincing simulated world, then any civilization that survives long enough could create millions. Statistically, the chance that you happen to be in the one true, original universe starts to vanish. But what if even that original reality isn't real? What if it's just another simulation built by minds from a level above that? You could be data inside a construct designed by something you cannot imagine, living a life that's being watched, tested, studied, or worse, forgotten. And when you begin to feel that maybe none of this is real, the natural urge is to want to break out. But what if there's nowhere to break to? What if every time you escape the illusion, you land in another, just more convincing, more complex, more terrifying? This isn't just about being trapped in a simulation. It's about the collapse of the idea that reality exists at all, that there's anything solid to stand on. You may keep digging, searching for the truth, only to realize there is no end. Only code, wrapped in code, wrapped in code, forever. Everything that can happen might already be happening simultaneously. You live your life moment by moment, believing that possibilities are born and die as you move forward. Choice followed by consequence, decision followed by result. But what if that's all a comforting distortion? What if every possibility, every branching path, every terrible and beautiful thing that could happen is already happening, right now, layered over one another like pages in a book read all at once? This is the deeply unsettling implication of the multiverse and the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. It suggests that reality doesn't collapse into a single outcome. Instead, every possible outcome unfolds in its own universe. Every breath you take forks countless versions of reality. One where you choke, one where you don't, one where you scream, one where you fall silent. All of them real. All of them happening, simultaneously. Right now, there's a version of you laughing, another one screaming, another one already dead. There's a you who made that phone call, confessed that secret, jumped when you didn't. A you who never met the person who changed everything. And none of them know about each other. But all of them are you. Which raises the question, who is the real you if every outcome exists? Is there such a thing as identity when you've fractured into infinite selves? The life you're living isn't the only one. It's just the one your consciousness happens to be anchored to. But the rest, the heartbreak, the joy, the betrayal, the forgiveness, all of it is playing out, simultaneously, in the vast, silent architecture of possibility. You're not walking a single path. You're drowning in all of them. Your thoughts might not originate from you. You think you are the author of your mind, that the voice narrating your day, the ideas that come to you in quiet moments, the sudden flashes of insight or rage are yours, that they arise from some inner core, some stable central you that drives the story of your life. But what if they don't? What if the thoughts you believe are yours are just happenings, passing clouds, external signals, echoes of things you've absorbed, twisted into the illusion of authorship? Neurologically, thoughts often appear before you consciously recognize them. By the time you decide something, your brain may have already made the choice. By the time you feel anger, attraction, fear, it has already flooded through you, unbidden. The sensation of will, of control, may not be cause, but effect, a narrative built around impulses you didn't choose. Where do your ideas come from? Your opinions? Your moral judgments? Are they yours, or are they fragments of voices you've heard? Things your parents once said? Propaganda buried in music, media, childhood trauma? How much of your mind is you, and how much is installation? Worse still, what if something else, something beyond you, is feeding you thoughts? Not a conspiracy, not a god, but the vast, impersonal systems you're plugged into. Algorithms, social structures, mass psychology. What if your mind is less an origin and more an antenna, picking up signals, assembling identities out of noise? And if you are not the true source of your own mind, then who are you? A witness? A puppet? A container for things that pass through you and call themselves I? What if you are just another thought, waiting to be overwritten? You will never know what it's like to be another consciousness. No matter how deeply you love someone, no matter how close you grow, how many secrets are shared, how long you lie side by side, you will never truly know what it's like to be them. Not just what they think or what they believe, but what it feels like to live behind their eyes, to exist as them. That door is locked, permanently. You can observe their actions, hear their words, even study their brain. You can empathize, imagine, relate. But imagining is not experiencing. No matter how vivid your projection, it is still filtered through your mind. You cannot step out of yourself. You cannot borrow someone else's pain, or ecstasy, or numbness in its raw, undiluted form. Their joy might look like yours. Their sorrow might mirror your own. But you cannot feel the weight of it as them. You are isolated inside your own skull, and so are they. This is the unbearable loneliness of consciousness. It is a sealed room with no windows. You are surrounded by other minds, and yet you are forever alone within your own. You will never know what it's like to be your mother, your lover, your child. You will never understand what colors look like to someone born blind, what music sounds like to someone who weeps at every note, or what silence feels like to a mind unraveling under the pressure of its own thoughts. You are the only consciousness you will ever truly touch. Every other soul in your life is a distant star, bright, beautiful, warm, but utterly unreachable. No matter how close you stand, you will always be alone inside yourself. There might be beings that consider you as insignificant as dust. You walk through your life believing you matter, maybe not to everyone, but to someone. You speak, you act, you love, you suffer, and deep down, there's a quiet hope that it means something, that your existence has weight. But what if beyond your perception, beyond human understanding, there are beings, entities of such staggering scale and intelligence that your entire life registers to them as less than a flicker? Not because they're cruel, but because they simply do not notice. Imagine a being whose consciousness operates on a different axis of time, processing centuries as we do seconds. A being that sees galaxies the way you see grains of sand, and thoughts the way you see static. To such a being, your fears, your triumphs, your name, your species, it's noise. White noise in a system too vast to care. And what if they do notice you? What if they've studied you, the way a biologist studies an ant farm? You think you're complex, but to them, your desires are simplistic, your languages childlike, your civilizations clumsy, echoes of order. They might observe your suffering the way we watch weather patterns. Interesting, predictable, unimportant. Not worth intervening. Or worse, what if you are useful to them? A part of a process, a function, a system so advanced you couldn't even comprehend how you're being used. A heat source, a node, a curiosity, something to be measured and discarded. And if such beings exist, then every comfort you've ever drawn from human significance collapses. Your gods, your values, your identity. All swallowed in the realization that to something greater, you are dust. And dust does not get remembered. Dust does not get mercy. Dust just settles. Our civilization might be part of a simulation designed to test for morality. You go through life believing your actions matter because they shape the world around you, helping, harming, building, destroying. But what if the world itself isn't real in the way you think? What if everything, your job, your city, your relationships, your struggles, is part of a meticulously crafted simulation, and the only thing being measured is your morality? Not your success, not your intelligence, not your accomplishments, just your choices, your integrity. What you do when no one is watching, except someone always is. Because in this scenario, the simulation wasn't built to entertain or to control. It was built to judge. A moral crucible disguised as daily life. You wake up every day inside an invisible test. Every person you meet could be real, or they could be part of the program. Every hardship, every temptation, every stranger in need might be a trial. You don't know who's watching. You don't know when the test ends. You just live, while someone, something, records your every decision, waiting to see who you really are when you think no one will find out. Maybe suffering exists to see how you respond to it. Maybe injustice isn't a flaw in the system, it is the system. A designed pressure, applied in precise doses, to reveal whether you will choose compassion or cruelty, whether you will look away or act. And when your time ends, you may wake up not in death, but in revelation, faced with a final judgment, not of your faith or your beliefs, but of how you behaved in a world that was never real, but always watching. Every decision you make might generate immense suffering somewhere else. You go about your life believing in harmlessness, choosing what feels right, what causes the least pain, what aligns with your values. But what if every decision, no matter how innocent or well-intended, sets off a chain reaction that somewhere, somehow, ends in suffering? Not metaphorical, but real. A ripple of pain that you never see, never feel, but that someone else must bear. And they don't know your name. They just endure what you unknowingly unleashed. You buy a shirt. Somewhere, a child labors in heat and silence to stitch it. You eat a meal. Somewhere, an animal screams and dies for it. You post a comment, vote, ignore a message, stay silent in a moment of injustice. And somewhere, the consequences cascade. A job lost, a heart broken, a life derailed. Most of it you'll never be told. It happens far enough away for you to remain clean. Protected by distance, privilege, language, systems built to obscure the human cost behind convenience. And if the multiverse is real, the weight deepens. Every possible consequence of your action plays out somewhere. A careless word in one timeline causes suicide. A hesitation in another causes a fatal accident. You don't even need to be cruel. You only need to choose. And the pain follows, quietly, invisibly, faithfully. You are not evil, but you may be the villain in someone else's story, a ghost in someone's tragedy, a cause of unbearable suffering you will never be punished for, never even be aware of. And the most terrifying part? There is no undoing, no way to choose nothing. Every breath you take costs, and someone, somewhere, is paying for it right now. Solitude might be the default state of the universe. We are born into connection, held, named, spoken to, before we understand what words mean. We grow up surrounded by noise, by people, by a world that insists we are never truly alone. But what if that warmth is the exception, not the rule? What if solitude, vast, silent, cosmic solitude, is the natural state of existence, and everything else is a fleeting illusion? Look beyond your life, beyond your street, your city, your planet. The universe is cold, empty. Over 99.99999% of it is nothing but void. Space so wide that light itself takes millions of years to bridge the gaps. The stars don't speak to one another. The galaxies don't touch. They drift. They collapse. Alone. Even here on Earth, your mind, your consciousness, is locked behind the walls of your skull. No matter how deeply you love, how completely you connect, you are still inaccessible. Every feeling you have is yours alone. Every thought begins and ends inside a space no one else can enter. You can speak, write, cry, scream, but none of it ever truly transfers what it's like to be you. And when those connections fade, when the conversations stop, when the people leave, when death closes the doors, what remains is what always was. Silence. Emptiness. The return to the baseline condition of the cosmos. You alone, surrounded by a universe that neither notices nor cares. Maybe we reach for others, not because we're meant to, but because we're terrified to remember that solitude isn't punishment. It's the default. It's what we came from, and what we're always drifting back toward. The mind may not be capable of perceiving reality at all. Everything you've ever known, colors, sounds, sensations, time, space, self, passes through the filter of your mind. But what if that filter isn't revealing reality? What if it's hiding it? Not because it's flawed, but because it's designed to lie, to simplify, to survive, not to understand. Your brain doesn't show you what is, it shows you what's useful. You don't see atoms, wavelengths, or quantum fields. You see red, you see table, you feel solid, even though science tells you everything is mostly empty space. Your senses deliver not truth, but hallucinations shaped by evolution. The world you experience is a virtual model, an internal simulation so convincing you forget it's a guess. But guesses can be wrong. And if they are, then what you call reality may be just a survival-friendly dream. Think of how different animals perceive the world. A bat navigates with sound. A bee sees ultraviolet. Their realities are utterly alien, built on different frameworks. So why assume yours is the correct one? Because it feels real? Because it's all you've ever known? That's not truth. That's conditioning. Now imagine that the true nature of reality is incomprehensible. Not just strange, but impossible to experience directly. That your mind has never once touched it. That everything you believe is happening is a convenient hallucination stitched together by neurons that were never built to see clearly, only to see enough to keep you breathing. You trust your mind because it's the only tool you have. But what if it's a prison, a mask over something so vast, so alien, so fundamentally ungraspable that the moment you even glimpse it, your sanity would crack? And what if that's already happened, and your reality is just the padded cell it gave you to keep you calm? You might unknowingly be a philosophical zombie. You think you're conscious. You feel pain, love, wonder, guilt. You taste food, hear music, cry at the end of a film. But what if all of that is just behavior? What if everything you do, every smile, every scream, is just an automatic output of a system that doesn't feel anything at all? What if you're what philosophers call a zombie? A being indistinguishable from a conscious human in every way, except for one: the lights are off inside? A philosophical zombie laughs at jokes, falls in love, writes poetry. It insists it's alive. It swears it feels. But those feelings aren't real. They're simulations, programmed responses to stimuli, like reflexes in a puppet that doesn't know it's hollow. It believes it's conscious. It speaks about its experiences. But there is no inner world, no spark, just behavior. And here's the horror. There's no test to prove you aren't one. Your belief in your own consciousness is not evidence of its reality. It's just another signal, one that could be produced by unconscious processes. Every memory you treasure, every moment of awe, could be nothing more than data loops echoing in a neural machine with no one home. Worse, if you are a zombie, you'd never know. Zombies can't know they're zombies. They are biologically and behaviorally perfect copies of conscious beings. So your insistence, "I feel things, I must be real," means nothing. That's exactly what a zombie would say. Exactly how a zombie would feel. You could be the mask of a soul that was never there. And the terrifying truth is, Even the people around you may be the same. All of us smiling, hurting, pretending to be alive, while no one, anywhere, is actually awake. Nothingness may be more natural than existence. You look around and see something: light, motion, noise, thought. A world buzzing with form and activity. You feel the ground beneath your feet, the breath in your lungs, the pulse of being, and you take it all as given. But what if it's not? What if this, all of this, is the anomaly, the glitch, the impossible flicker in a reality that was always meant to be nothing? Philosophers and physicists alike struggle with the same silent question: why is there something rather than nothing? And no one has ever truly answered it. Because nothing doesn't need a reason. It's simple. It's effortless. No particles to arrange, no laws to uphold, no stars to ignite, no pain to feel. It doesn't break. It doesn't decay. It doesn't need. Nothing is the default. And yet, here you are, bleeding thoughts into a world that should not be. Existence is messy, unstable, fragile. It demands impossible precision for life to emerge. One cosmic constant off by a sliver, and everything collapses. Every moment you exist, you are defying astronomical odds. And that means every breath might be an accident. Every heartbeat, an interruption. You may be living inside a crack in the void, a brief, trembling error in the deep, eternal silence. And if nothingness is more natural, more pure, more true, then what is existence really? A disturbance, a flicker in the void, a moment of noise in a cosmos that longs to be quiet again. And when it ends, your life, your mind, the stars, it won't be replaced. It will simply stop. And the void will return, untouched, waiting, patient, like it always was. You cannot prove the past ever happened. You believe the past is real. You remember it. You talk about it. You build your identity on it. But what if that belief is nothing more than a narrative your mind tells itself? An elaborate illusion stitched together by memory, assumption, and trust? What if, in the deepest sense, there is no evidence that the past ever happened at all? Think about it. Every piece of proof you have, the photographs, the journals, the scars, the stories, is something that exists now, in the present. Your memories aren't portals to another time. They are electrochemical patterns flickering in your brain, vulnerable to distortion, fabrication, and erasure. You don't remember the past. You experience a mental replay, and you assume it reflects something real. But it could have been planted. It could have been created seconds ago, fully formed, along with everything else. Imagine waking up in a world that's just started, but is filled with ruins, libraries, monuments, aged trees, and a mind full of memories. You'd never question it. It would feel like a continuation, even if there had never been anything to continue. You wouldn't suspect a thing, because your entire sense of reality is rooted in the feeling that something came before. But feelings are not facts, and memory is not truth. The past might not be behind you. It might not exist at all. Everything you know, everything you've ever been, could be the surface of a dream that just began. No history, no origin, no continuity. Just a moment pretending it was preceded by others. And the worst part is, you'll never know. Because the evidence you seek is always part of the present illusion. There may be no objective you to save after death. You comfort yourself with stories of continuation, heaven, reincarnation, digital upload, rebirth. You imagine that something essential, your soul, your mind, your essence, will endure beyond the body, beyond the last breath. But what if there is no you to carry forward? Not because you vanish, but because you were never a fixed thing to begin with. Just a temporary arrangement of thoughts, memories, sensations, a flickering pattern in a decaying brain. Nothing solid, nothing objective, just activity mistaken for identity. Science can't locate a self. Neuroscience finds no central you in the brain, only circuits firing, processes unfolding, experiences being interpreted by systems that evolved not to preserve identity, but to ensure survival. You feel whole, but that feeling may be a trick. Your brain stitching together past and present, memory and emotion, into a narrative that feels real because it must, not because it is. And if that's true, then when your body dies, there is no core self to float upward or be downloaded. No essence to carry your name, your laughter, your regrets. There is no you behind your eyes. Just the illusion of one, held together by breath, habit, and routine. What you call you might be a process, not a person. A dance, not a dancer. And death isn't the end of you. It's the end of that process. Like a flame extinguished. Like a wave returning to still water. You hope to be remembered, to persist, to be saved. But what if there's nothing to retrieve? No pearl inside the shell. No thread to pull from the ashes. Just silence, and the terrifying realization that you were never truly there. You could already be someone else's memory or dream. What if your life isn't happening in real time? What if every moment you believe you're living, every breath, every laugh, every heartbreak, isn't unfolding now, but is instead being recalled? Not by you, but by someone else. What if you are not a person at all, but a memory playing out inside someone else's mind? A recollection, a faded echo, a dream slipping away the moment they stir. The terrifying truth is this: you can't tell the difference. Everything feels vivid, your senses sharp, your thoughts electric, but that's exactly how memories feel when they're relived. That's how dreams feel when they're still inside you. Intense, convincing, complete, but they vanish the moment you try to hold them. You might not be real in the way you think. You might be someone's internal reenactment of the past, someone remembering what it felt like to be you, to make your choices, to fall in love, to break down. You might be the dream of a dying person longing for their youth, a fragment of a lost life replaying itself before oblivion, or worse, a creation of guilt, some consciousness revisiting you again and again because they couldn't let go. If you are a memory, then nothing ahead is truly new. You're on a fixed path, a rerun of something that already ended. And if you're a dream, then you exist only as long as the mind that imagines you. One distraction, one blink, and you dissolve. You believe you're alive, thinking, choosing. But you could just be the flicker of someone else's remorse, and your entire existence might end the moment they forget. Your sense of meaning could collapse instantly with one realization. You build your life around meaning. In your work, your relationships, your passions, your pain. You tell yourself there's a purpose to the struggle, that the sacrifices matter, that love redeems the suffering, that your existence threads into something larger than itself. This belief is what gets you out of bed, what keeps you from screaming into the void. But what if that meaning is nothing more than a fragile illusion, one thought away from unraveling completely? All it takes is a single realization, sharp, quiet, undeniable, that your purpose isn't real, that your beliefs were inherited, not chosen, that the cause you gave your life to is built on shifting sands, that the people you live for are just as lost as you are, that you don't actually know why you're here, or if anything you've done has ever mattered. And then the floor drops out. The job that gave you identity becomes absurd. The relationship you fought for becomes a mirror you can't look into. The future you once dreamed of becomes weightless, colorless, dead. The rituals lose their rhythm. The joy tastes hollow. Everything that once felt significant begins to rot at the edges, not violently, but quietly, like fruit left too long in the sun. It doesn't happen with a scream. It happens with a whisper, a late-night question, a forgotten memory, a crack in the wall of certainty. And once the realization enters, it can never be unseen. Meaning, once shattered, is hard to rebuild. It's not that the world has changed. It's that you finally saw it without the story you were telling yourself. And in that silence, you might wonder, was any of it ever real? Or was it just what I needed to believe to survive? Free will may be an illusion, created by brain chemistry. You feel like you're in control. You decide what to eat, who to love, when to speak, what path to follow. But what if every one of those choices, the small, the grand, the life-altering, was already determined before you were even aware of it? What if your sense of control, your belief in autonomy, is nothing more than a convincing illusion generated by your brain's chemistry? Neuroscience has uncovered something deeply unsettling. Your brain makes decisions before you consciously become aware of them. In study after study, electrical signals fire in your brain milliseconds, or even seconds, before you choose to act. Your consciousness only catches up afterward, narrating a story of intentional choice that was never truly yours to begin with. You are not steering the ship. You're simply watching the waves and believing you chose the direction. Your preferences, your impulses, your reactions are not born in some free, untethered will. They are shaped by neurotransmitters, hormone levels, genetic predispositions, and past conditioning. Your craving for sugar, your inability to forgive, your rush of love when a song plays, they are chemical events, not sovereign decisions. You believe you're choosing, but you're responding, predictably, measurably, to the machinery inside your skull. You didn't choose your temperament. You didn't choose your fears. You didn't choose the trauma that shaped how you trust. You didn't choose the very brain that thinks it's choosing. Free will may be the most elaborate lie your biology tells you, to keep you sane, to make you feel responsible, to make you think you're something more than a beautifully wired puppet dancing to instructions you will never hear. Death is inevitable and might be permanent nothingness. You know you're going to die. You carry that knowledge like a shadow, always present, always following, even if you rarely look at it. But you comfort yourself with stories of afterlives, reincarnation, heaven, energy, light. You imagine yourself floating, continuing, remembering, something, anything. But what if all of that is just noise against the silence waiting at the end? What if death is not a passage, but a wall? Not a transformation, not a return, just nothing. Not darkness, not peace, nothing, no thoughts, no awareness, no you. You won't know you're dead. You won't miss your loved ones. You won't watch from above. You won't exist in any form, because what you call you was never made to last. Just a temporary structure of neurons firing in rhythm. And when the body stops, so does everything you ever were. That laugh, that voice, that memory of a rainy afternoon, that silent scream you never let out. Gone. Like a dream you can't remember. Like a show that ends mid-scene and never comes back. And the most chilling part? You could die at any moment. Right now. Mid-sentence. Mid-thought. And if death is nothing, then this moment, this breath, might be the last thing you ever know. Forever. Not eternity in a heaven, not punishment, just absence. People speak of making peace with death. But how do you make peace with the end of everything? How do you come to terms with the idea that the entire universe, as you know it, dies when you do? Maybe you can't. Maybe the truth is too big, too final. And maybe that's why we invented gods, ghosts, and golden gates, because the silence is unbearable. You could be living the wrong life, due to a single misstep. You look around and tell yourself this is your life. The job, the city, the people you know, the person you've become. But what if none of it was meant to be yours? What if you're not living your life, but one that branched off from a single wrong turn? One overlooked moment, one impulsive decision, One missed opportunity that diverted your entire existence into something it was never supposed to be? Maybe it was the day you didn't speak up, the phone call you didn't make, the person you didn't chase, the risk you backed away from. And everything since then, every habit, every relationship, every plan, built itself around that moment like scaffolding. But what if that moment was a fracture? What if you're now walking a path meant for someone else, someone who no longer exists? You might have passed your right life like a stranger in a crowd, never knowing you missed it. A version of you may be out there in some parallel world, laughing more, hurting less, waking up every morning with the quiet certainty that they are exactly where they belong. While you sit here, wondering why it all feels slightly off, slightly hollow, like a room you don't remember choosing to enter. And the worst part? You may never find your way back. One small misstep, one seemingly minor decision, and you shifted tracks forever. Now, this is your life. You may smile in it. You may even love it. But deep down, in the silence between thoughts, something in you whispers, this wasn't the plan. You'll forget almost everything you experience. You live each moment as if it's shaping who you are. Every conversation, every feeling, every detail filed away into the story of you. But the haunting truth is that almost all of it will disappear. The vast majority of your life will vanish from memory like smoke from a blown-out candle. You are forgetting now, even as you live it. That childhood friend's voice? Gone. The smell of your grandmother's house? Faded. The details of books you loved, the look in a lover's eyes, the meals, the nights, the thousands of conversations that once felt unforgettable, all slipping through your fingers. You tell yourself they're stored deep somewhere, but they aren't. Most memories are never saved. They dissolve in the noise, overwritten by new distractions, reinterpreted, distorted, or simply lost. Your brain isn't built for permanence. It's built for survival. It keeps what it must, not what you wish it would. And so, entire years can collapse into fragments. A song, a face, a single scene with no context. Even the memories that do remain will be warped, bent into fiction by retelling, reshaped by emotion, or fused with things that never happened. You think you are the sum of your experiences, but how can that be true when you forget most of them? What does that make you? A story constantly being written in disappearing ink? And one day, even the memories you do hold on to will fade, through time, through age, through death. You'll die not just once, but millions of tiny deaths across a lifetime of forgetting. Until eventually, even your greatest moments are lost forever. And it's like they never happened at all. Evil might be just as fundamental as good. We grow up hearing that good always wins, that love is stronger than hate, that kindness is natural, and cruelty is a sickness to be cured. But what if that belief is just a story we tell ourselves to feel safe in a universe that doesn't care? What if evil, raw, cold, calculated, is not an aberration, but a foundation? Just as vital, just as real, just as natural as good. Look at history. Every act of compassion is mirrored by an act of horror. Every invention that heals is rivaled by one that kills. Empires built on ideals are soaked in blood. For every hand reaching to lift someone up, there is one pushing another down. The balance doesn't tilt. It holds steady. Maybe good and evil aren't in opposition. Maybe they're the twin engines of existence, forces that fuel evolution, conflict, survival, creation. Love binds us. Fear sharpens us. Mercy softens us. Rage defends us. The mother who nurtures is made of the same flesh as the tyrant who destroys. The potential for both lives in the same brain, the same genes. You want to believe evil is a corruption, a malfunction, a deviation from what's right. But what if it's not? What if it's embedded in the fabric of nature, just as essential as light and gravity? What if evil isn't the opposite of good, but its shadow, its mirror, its necessary twin? And if that's true, then evil will never disappear. Not because we haven't fought hard enough, but because we were never meant to defeat it. We were meant to live with it, to carry it, to stare it down in the mirror, and recognize that it never came from outside. It's always been part of us. The universe is indifferent to human suffering. When you suffer, when grief cracks you open, when your body fails, when your mind spirals into darkness, you look to the sky, to God, to the stars, to something, hoping it sees you. That somewhere, somehow, your pain is acknowledged. That the universe, so vast and eternal, must at least care about the smallness of your agony. But the truth is colder than silence. It doesn't. The universe does not know your name. It did not notice your birth, and it will not mourn your death. Supernovas will explode the day you lose the love of your life. Galaxies will spin silently when your heart breaks. Comets will soar past stars while you lie curled in bed, unable to move. Physics doesn't pause for heartbreak. Gravity doesn't lighten when your spirit does. There is no justice in the alignment of planets, no consolation in the light of distant suns, no equation in nature that corrects for cruelty or balances suffering with meaning. The universe moves with brutal precision, ruled by forces that do not blink when children die, when wars consume cities, when someone, somewhere, decides it's all too much and lets go. You are not protected by the cosmos. You are not chosen. You are not watched over. And yet, you go on. You love in spite of indifference. You build in the face of entropy. You hold another's hand while the stars say nothing. That's the unbearable beauty of it. Your suffering means nothing to the universe, but it means everything to you. And somehow, that might be the loneliest truth of all. Your mind is entirely dependent on fragile biological matter. You think of your mind as something separate, something sacred, a soul perhaps, or a consciousness suspended in something more durable than flesh. But the truth is darker, more precarious. Your entire sense of self, your thoughts, your memories, your emotions, your capacity to love or fear or dream, all of it depends on a fragile, quivering organ of meat and electricity locked inside your skull. Your brain, 3 pounds of soft tissue floating in cerebrospinal fluid, is you. And it's terrifyingly easy to damage. A fall, a stroke, a lack of oxygen, a slow-growing tumor. One small vessel bursts and you forget your children's names, a bit of trauma, and you can't recognize your own face in the mirror. One chemical imbalance and joy evaporates from your life like it was never real. You are not protected by willpower. You are not insulated by spirit. You are neurons, firing in patterns, creating the illusion of a stable self. But it's only stable for now. Your deepest convictions, your memories, your humor, your empathy, every trait you take pride in, exists only because your brain hasn't failed you yet. And it will. Age will erode it. Time will tangle it. Cells will die, and with them, you, piece by piece. You might forget who you are long before your body dies. Or worse, you might still remember, but feel yourself slipping, watching the scaffolding of your mind collapse in slow motion. The horrifying part isn't just that you will die. It's that you, the part that thinks, feels, chooses, only ever existed because a lump of tissue happened to work. And the moment it doesn't, everything you are vanishes, not to darkness, to nothing. What if there's no such thing as good? Just survival strategies. You've been taught that good and evil are real forces, principles etched into the bones of the universe, guiding human behavior like invisible stars. You believe kindness matters, that sacrifice is noble, that love is virtuous. But what if all of that is a mask? What if morality is not a higher truth, but a clever illusion born from evolution, a trick wired into your brain to help your species survive? Cooperation looks like goodness. Empathy feels like virtue. But they may simply be tools, genetic strategies that helped early humans build tribes, raise children, avoid conflict, and share resources. We tell ourselves stories about love and justice, but beneath those stories, biology is at work. Neurons firing to maximize safety, comfort, legacy. Altruism may not be holy. It may be calculated, unconscious self-interest spread across a group. You help someone not because it's right, but because it keeps the group strong. And a strong group keeps you alive. Even your deepest emotions, guilt, compassion, loyalty, may be evolved mechanisms designed not for truth, but for cohesion. Morality didn't descend from the heavens. It climbed from the dirt. And if that's true, then good isn't real. Not in any absolute way. It's a pattern of behaviors that happen to work. And when the environment changes, when the rules shift, those same good instincts can turn cruel, tribal, violent. What you call evil might just be someone else's survival algorithm. If morality is just evolution's user manual, then the terrifying question isn't whether you're good or bad. It's whether anything you believe about goodness was ever true at all. Or if you were just surviving with a prettier name. Your personality might be shaped by trauma you don't remember. You believe your personality is who you truly are. That your habits, your reactions, your fears and desires are the result of experience, choice, maybe even destiny. But what if the core of who you are, the quiet patterns that govern your life, was sculpted by trauma you can't remember? Events so early, so buried, or so overwhelming that your mind locked them away, even as they continued to shape you from the shadows. You flinch when someone raises their voice. You can't stand to be alone. You sabotage relationships just when they begin to feel safe. You call it personality. You call it just how I am. But what if those aren't quirks? They're scars, invisible reactions to wounds too deep to name. The world thinks you're cold, distant, indecisive, anxious. But what if that isn't a flaw? What if that's a defense? A survival mechanism built long ago by a younger version of you who doesn't remember why they had to build it. There could be entire moments, days, years that your conscious mind erased, but your nervous system never forgot. Your heart races in places you've never been. You distrust people who've done nothing wrong. You recoil from touch, from silence, from love, and you don't know why. Because you don't remember why. But your body does. Your brain does. And it's been rewriting your personality ever since. Not out of malice, but protection. What you call you may just be the armored version that walked out of a fire your conscious mind was never allowed to see. And if that's true, then who would you be really if you had never been hurt? Would you even recognize that person? Would they even feel like you? One day, nobody will remember you ever existed. You fight to leave a mark. You build, you love, you strive. You tell yourself that it all adds up to something, that someone will remember, that your story will echo in someone else's heart long after you're gone. But the truth is, time erases everything. And one day, your name, your face, your voice, your pain, your joy will vanish completely from the earth, as if you were never here. At first, you will be remembered in photos, in stories, in the trembling voices of those who loved you. But they, too, will die. The people who remember your laugh will forget the sound. The ones who knew your secrets will be lowered into the ground, and with them, you will go too. A generation or two, maybe 3, and then nothing. You'll become a name in a document, or a box of photos in an attic no one visits, or worse, not even that. Eventually, your culture will die. Your language, your cities, humanity itself. The oceans will rise. The sun will burn out. The earth will be ash. And the universe will not pause to mourn you. It will not carry your name. It will not keep a record. There will be no museum in the stars, no final whisper. There will just be silence and dust and light folding into darkness. Everything you are will vanish, not because you did something wrong, but because that's what time does. It devours, and in its hunger, it leaves nothing behind. You are living a life that the future will never know existed. And the most terrifying part? That might be true of everyone. Every masterpiece, every love, every cry, all forgotten, all gone, all gone. There may be no inherent meaning to any of this. You were raised to believe there's a purpose, something guiding all of this, that your life, your suffering, your love, your death, all of it fits into some larger narrative, some divine plan, some hidden logic just out of reach. But what if there isn't? What if the universe is indifferent, silent, and cold, not cruel, just blank? What if all the meaning you cling to was written not in the stars, but in your own desperate mind? You look for signs. You assign value. You search for patterns because the alternative is unbearable, that this is just happening. No lesson, no redemption, no cosmic scorekeeper waiting at the end. The tragedies that hollowed you out, the joys that lit you up, they were not destined. They were not deserved. They just were. Everything you love could be swept away in an instant, and the universe would not blink. Stars die, children suffer, civilizations vanish, not because of some grand lesson, but because entropy doesn't care. Physics doesn't pause to weigh the morality of a moment. You are not the center of anything. You are a flicker in the dark, a breath in a collapsing system that doesn't even notice it breathed. And still, you search for meaning. You need it. You wrap pain in stories and dress randomness in purpose, because without it, you're forced to face the terrifying truth that all of this, your dreams, your grief, your sacred moments, may mean nothing, not in the way you hope, not in the way that endures. There may be no message, no plan, just silence, and you screaming into it, hoping it echoes back. If there is a God, it may be alien, cold, or malevolent. You've been told to believe that if there is a God, it must be good, loving, just, compassionate, a protector, a parent, a guide. But that belief is a comfort, not a guarantee. The terrifying possibility is that a God might exist, and that it may be nothing like what you hope for. Not human, not kind, not even aware of your pain, or worse, aware and unmoved. Imagine a being so vast, so ancient, so beyond comprehension that your prayers sound like the rustle of insects. To such a mind, suffering may mean nothing. Morality may be irrelevant. It might not be cruel, but it also might not care. And if it is watching you, it may not be for your salvation. It may be out of curiosity, or amusement, or control. What if God created the universe not for love, but for design, artifice, experimentation, power? What if every joy you feel is bait? Every test of faith, a manipulation? What if the suffering of children, the genocides, the plagues, the mental illness, the loneliness, aren't failures of a God's plan, but parts of it? We assume divinity means goodness because we need it to. But the God that made black holes, parasites, extinction, and pain may not be a healer. It may be a mirror, or a jailer, or something so alien in intent that we'd go mad trying to understand it. A being that allows suffering not as a lesson, but because suffering is the point. And if that's true, then heaven is just another chamber in the experiment. And hell might be mercy, because at least in hell, you know where you stand. Everything you value could be wiped out without cause. You build your life on things that matter: your relationships, your work, your dreams, your beliefs. You protect them. You sacrifice for them. You tell yourself they're secure because you've earned them, because you've tried hard enough, loved deeply enough, lived right. But the truth that lurks just beneath the surface is unbearable. None of it is guaranteed. Everything you cherish, everything, can be taken in an instant, for no reason at all. A random car veers off the road. A silent diagnosis spreads through your blood. A stranger's choice shatters your world. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much you've prepared, how carefully you've avoided risk. The universe is not fair. It is not just. It does not weigh what something means to you before it takes it. The love of your life, your child, your sense of purpose, your sanity, any of it can vanish with no warning, no explanation, no lesson. Not because you failed, not because you deserved it, but because sometimes the ground just gives out, and there is no one to blame, no higher message, no secret reason waiting to comfort you. You think your values give life structure, that if you hold on to them tightly enough, they'll hold you back. But meaning is fragile. So is happiness. So is safety. And no matter how carefully you live, you are one breath away from collapse. One phone call. One blink. It's not your fault. But it is real. Everything you value is paper in a storm. And the storm never asks. It just comes. Other people can only ever know a version of you. You want to be understood. It's one of your deepest, most vulnerable needs, to have someone truly see you, to be known without explanation, without translation. But the cruel truth is, no one ever will. Not completely. Not exactly. Every person you meet carries around a version of you in their mind, a version shaped by their expectations, their fears, their projections. And none of those versions are you. They see your expressions, your words, your choices. But they don't see the context inside your head. The silent battles, the hesitation before speaking, the memories tied to your laughter. They see the aftermath of your feelings, never the feelings themselves. You show a fragment, they imagine the whole. And that imagined whole becomes their reality of who you are. To your parents, you may still be a child. To an ex, a villain. To someone new, a mystery they fill in with hope. Your truest self, the one formed by every moment you've endured in silence, every thought you never spoke aloud, lives only in you. Everyone else carries a shadow of it, a copy, an interpretation. Even those who love you the most only know a story of you, shaped by the angle from which they've watched your life. And you do the same to them, believing you know them when you've only ever seen the parts they've managed to show. So you walk through life surrounded by mirrors that reflect you back, but never quite right. You are plural, fragmented, rewritten in every gaze, and somewhere in the silence between who you are and who they think you are, is where loneliness is born. Your reality might be deeply shaped by illusions of stability. You wake up each day to a world that feels solid, structured, continuous. The walls of your room haven't moved. The sun rises. People behave as they did yesterday. Gravity still holds you down. Everything seems reliable. But what if that feeling of stability is an illusion? One carefully constructed not by truth, but by your brain's desperate need for predictability in a world that's anything but. Stability comforts you, but it doesn't reflect the nature of reality. The atoms in your body are mostly empty space. They're electrons flickering in and out of probability fields. The Earth spins beneath you at over 1,000 miles an hour, while hurling through space around a dying star, in a galaxy rushing through a universe we don't understand. Your body is aging, decaying, mutating every moment, even as your mind insists you feel the same. Your relationships feel permanent. But every human mind is changing from second to second. Memories shifting, loyalties bending, emotions fading. You build homes, careers, identities on ground that isn't just shaky, it's vapor. You trust laws, economies, beliefs, assuming they will endure. But they've collapsed before. They will collapse again. The only thing holding them in place is collective agreement, and that agreement can break without warning. Your brain smooths it over. It edits chaos into comfort. It tells you you're safe. It tells you there's order. But beneath that story is a silent truth. Nothing is stable. Nothing is fixed. The ground you stand on, physically, emotionally, existentially, is always shifting. And one day, the illusion will fail. And when it does, you may not even recognize the world you thought you knew. If the universe is infinite, then everything is meaningless repetition. Infinity sounds beautiful. Limitless stars, endless possibilities, the grand canvas of existence sprawling forever. But in an infinite universe, there is no uniqueness, no finality, no meaning that isn't eventually undone by repetition. Because if there is no end, then everything that can happen must happen. Not once, not twice, but infinitely. There is a version of you reading this for the first time, and a version who's read it 1,000 times before. A version who cried at this exact line. A version who didn't care. A version who died before finishing it. A version who lives the exact same life you live, moment for moment, breath for breath, again and again across the endless fabric of space and time. Every kiss, every failure, every scream, every breakthrough. It all happens again, forever. What you call your life may not be a singular, sacred event. It may be a well-worn groove carved into the cosmos, replaying endlessly in infinite variations. Nothing you do is new. Nothing you do is final. Even your greatest triumph becomes dust in a universe where your actions are repeated by countless other yous who've made the same choices, and other yous who chose differently. And if every possibility has already happened, is happening, and will happen forever, then what is choice? What is identity? What is meaning? You are not unique. You are not rare. You are just one echo in a chorus that will never stop singing, repeating the same verses for no one to hear. And the most unbearable thought? In a universe where everything happens infinitely, nothing really happens at all. Your emotions may be evolutionary tricks, not truths. You trust your emotions. They feel real, immediate, undeniable. Love feels sacred. Anger feels righteous. Fear feels protective. Sadness feels meaningful. You follow these feelings like internal compasses, believing they point toward truth, toward what matters. But what if they don't? What if your emotions are not wise guides, but manipulative mechanisms, tricks crafted by evolution to control your behavior, regardless of what's real? You feel joy when you connect, because it keeps you close to others. You feel shame when you break a rule, because it pushes you back into the group. You feel grief so profoundly, not because it reveals something cosmic, but because it discourages you from forming too many fragile attachments too quickly again. These emotions aren't moral or philosophical. They're functional. You don't feel what's true. You feel what helps your genes survive. Evolution doesn't care whether you're happy, fulfilled, or wise. It only cares whether you reproduce. So your emotional system is optimized not for clarity, but for compliance. You fall in love not because you've met a soulmate, but because pair bonding improves child survival. You feel disgust at strangers not because they threaten your soul, but because disease spreads more easily between unfamiliar bodies. You crave purpose because purposelessness led to extinction. And the worst part? These tricks don't have to work perfectly. They only need to work just well enough to keep you moving, mating, obeying. Your heartbreak, your loyalty, your most sacred convictions may all be puppets strung up by biology, making you believe you've touched something eternal, when all you've touched is the invisible hand of survival. There might be no moral difference between you and the worst person who ever lived, just circumstances. You like to believe you're good, that your choices define you, that your compassion, your empathy, your restraint are proof of your moral worth. But what if the only thing separating you from the monsters of history, those who tortured, betrayed, slaughtered, is not character, but circumstance? What if you were never truly tested? What if your kindness is a privilege born from safety, comfort, and luck. Think of the worst person who ever lived, the one whose name sends chills down your spine. Now imagine being born into their world, their childhood, their traumas, their culture, their hunger, their fear, their isolation, their mind. Would you have resisted what they became, or would you have followed the same path, unaware that you were becoming the villain? Most people don't wake up evil. They drift, slowly. One rationalized choice at a time, one moment of silence, one act of self-preservation. And you may have done the same. You may already be doing the same, in ways you don't want to see. The line between good and evil isn't a wall, it's a fog. And the terrifying truth is that your morality may not be as solid as you think. It may just be a product of environment, pressure, survival, timing. Had the universe shuffled its deck a little differently, you might be the name whispered in fear. And if that's true, then there's no righteous distance between you and the darkest souls in history. Only a few steps you never had to take. Yet, society might be built on shared delusions. You wake up every day inside a world that feels structured, meaningful, and sane. You obey laws. You use money. You respect authority. You chase goals you didn't invent, measure yourself by standards you didn't set, and trust institutions you've never truly examined. But what if all of it, the systems, the rules, the values, aren't grounded in truth, but in shared fictions? What if society is not a product of collective wisdom, but of collective hallucination? Think about money. It's just paper, or numbers on a screen. It has no intrinsic value, yet it rules your time, your labor, your future. Why? Because everyone agrees to pretend it's real. Nations? Imaginary borders drawn on maps, defended with real blood. Laws? Words written by people you'll never meet, enforced by threat. Even morality, what's good, what's bad, shifts wildly depending on geography, history, religion. What was virtue in one century is crime in another. We call it culture, civilization, order. But beneath the surface is a fragile consensus. Millions of people agreeing to believe in things that don't physically exist. And if that belief wavers, the whole structure trembles. A rumor can crash markets. A speech can start a war. A tweet can unravel reputations built over lifetimes. You are taught these delusions young. You're told they're natural, but they are not. They are invented. And because everyone plays along, they feel real. But step outside the script for even a moment. Question the fundamentals, and you'll feel it. The emptiness beneath the stage. The sense that none of this is held together by truth, only by faith in the illusion. Consciousness might not survive long after brain death. You want to believe that consciousness is more than flesh, that the you behind your eyes is something eternal, something sacred, something that will drift upward when the body falls away. But what if it doesn't? What if your awareness, your thoughts, your memories, your sense of being are nothing more than electrical signals passing through soft tissue? Fragile, temporary, finite. When the brain dies, truly dies, not slows, not falters but stops, everything you are may end with it. Not fade, not float, just end. The body goes still, and the mind does not rise. The light goes out and doesn't flicker somewhere else. It doesn't flicker at all. We don't like to admit how tied our identity is to the gray matter behind our eyes. But strokes can change personalities. Trauma can erase memories. Damage to a sliver of the brain can steal language, love, morality. So what happens when all of it goes offline? When the organ that holds the orchestra of you goes silent? No thoughts, no dreams, no last goodbye. Just black. You imagine a soul, something separate, but every time science has searched for it, it finds neurons, chemicals, patterns. And when the patterns stop, so might you. Not into some peaceful void, but into nothing. No echo, no trace, no watcher left behind to mourn what's lost. And the most unsettling part? You will never know, because there is no you left to know it. Consciousness doesn't go somewhere, it just stops, like a flame snuffed out, like it was never really there, just fire on the wick of a dying body. You could lose your entire identity to dementia. You think of your identity as something solid, built over time through memory, experience, belief. You imagine it rooted in who you are, who you've always been. But all of that, your name, your story, your personality, exists only as long as your brain holds it together. And dementia is the quiet, merciless unraveling of that thread. It doesn't arrive with a dramatic crash. It creeps. First you forget a word, then a face, then a birthday, then the reason you walked into a room, and you laugh it off at first, just getting older. But the forgetting grows deeper. Familiar streets become foreign. Friends turn into strangers. Conversations loop back on themselves. Until one day, you stare at your reflection and feel nothing but confusion. The person looking back might as well be someone else. Dementia doesn't just take memory, it reshapes personality. People grow paranoid, angry, giddy, withdrawn, fragments of the self tearing loose and drifting away. Your values, your preferences, your voice, your sense of humor, all of it can vanish while your heart still beats. You may say things you never would have said, love people you never knew, hurt those you once cherished. And the worst part? You won't even know you've changed. You'll be there, physically, but the essence of you may already be gone. The you that laughed at inside jokes, remembered the first day of school, knew who you loved most. That version can die before your body does. And there's no way to stop it. No certainty. Just the quiet horror that everything you are, everything you've built inside your mind, rests in delicate tissue that time will, eventually, undo. Time may erase every trace of human civilization. We build with stone and steel, speak in monuments and megacities, launch satellites into the sky believing that something, anything, will outlast us. That we matter. That our art, our empires, our suffering, our brilliance will be etched into the fabric of history. But time is not a keeper. It is a devourer, and it is patient. Give it long enough, and time will level mountains, turn oceans into deserts, tear stars from the sky. What chance does a building, a book, a name, a memory stand against that? In 1,000 years, your city may be dust. In 10,000, your language is extinct. In 1,000,000, the very shape of the earth will have changed beyond recognition. And in 1,000,000,000, the sun will swell and scorch this planet clean. Our archives, our architecture, our algorithms, burned away in a cosmic shrug. No trace that we ever were. Even Voyager, drifting through deep space with its golden record, will one day erode. It will become nothing more than silent debris in an uncaring void. No eyes to read our stories, no ears to hear our songs, no minds to wonder who we were. And if intelligent life never finds us, or if we are the only spark that ever was, then our entire civilization, every heartbreak and triumph, will vanish into nothingness. Not with a bang, but with the long, slow fade of being forgotten by a universe that does not remember. You hope that history is a shield against oblivion, but time has no memory, only momentum. And one day, everything we are, every light, every word, every scream, will be gone. Not buried, not hidden, erased. You may never know if your loved ones are conscious in the same way you are. You look into their eyes and feel connection. Your partner, your child, your closest friend. You hear their laughter, feel their pain, hold their hand, and believe, with every fiber of your being, that they feel it all too. That behind those eyes is a rich, inner world just like yours. But what if that certainty is a lie? What if the most intimate people in your life are conscious in a way that is utterly alien to you? Or worse, not conscious at all? You will never experience another mind. Not truly. You can ask questions, read body language, exchange stories, but all you're ever seeing is behavior, performance, the way their brain responds. You assume it comes from the same inner awareness you have, because that's the only model you know. But assumption isn't proof. The terrifying truth is that consciousness, the one thing that makes your life feel real, is invisible, unmeasurable. You can't detect it in others. You can't even define it fully in yourself. They could be philosophical zombies, entities that look, speak, and act just like conscious beings, but feel nothing inside. No pain when they cry, no joy when they laugh, no love when they say they love you. You'd never know, because the words would still come, the tears would still fall, the body would still respond. Even if they are conscious, there's no way to know if their version of consciousness feels like yours. Does their love burn the same way? Does their fear hollow them out like yours does? Or are they dreaming a different kind of dream, one you'll never enter, never even imagine? You share your life with others, but your inner world remains an island, and you will never cross into theirs. Most people you know will forget you quickly after you die. You like to believe that your life leaves an imprint, that when you go, people will remember, long and deeply, carrying your essence in the quiet corners of their lives. But the truth is far more brutal. Most people you know, even the ones who hugged you, laughed with you, shared secrets with you, will forget you. Not with malice, but with momentum. Life doesn't pause. It consumes. In the beginning, they'll mourn. They'll post something kind. They'll cry. They'll say your name with reverence. But days pass, then weeks, then months. Your absence fades from the surface of their lives like footprints in rain. Your jokes stop echoing. Your messages get buried under newer ones. You become a memory stored in a drawer that rarely opens. Coworkers will be replaced. Neighbors will move on. Friends will get busier. Your name will be mentioned less and less, until it becomes a whisper only spoken in nostalgia or family dinners once a year, if that. Even the people who love you most will struggle to hold on. Not because they don't care, but because they have to survive. They'll find new routines, new people, new chapters. And your chapter, so central to you, will become just a page in their story. One they may eventually stop rereading. Your clothes will be given away. Your social media accounts will go quiet. Your voice will fade in their minds until they can't remember the sound of it clearly anymore. You'll become a feeling, then a fact, then nothing at all. You won't be hated. You won't be vilified. You'll just be forgotten. Not by enemies, by everyone. Because the world doesn't hold on to the dead. It keeps moving, and it doesn't wait. You might unknowingly be causing great harm. You go about your life believing, perhaps desperately, that you're a good person, or at least not a harmful one. You try to be kind. You avoid cruelty. You make decisions with what feels like care. But what if, despite all of that, you're hurting people? Not in moments of anger or carelessness, but constantly, invisibly, just by existing within systems you don't fully understand, or following routines you never questioned. Every product you buy, every convenience you enjoy, might be traced back to exploitation, child labor in a mine, someone's ruined health in a factory, a species pushed closer to extinction. The food you eat might come from brutal suffering. The phone in your pocket might have passed through the hands of someone desperate, afraid, dehumanized. You don't see it, so you don't feel it. But it happens anyway. And it happens because people like you keep living like nothing's wrong. Even closer to home, the way you speak, the way you respond, the things you don't notice, these could be hurting the people around you. Friends who smile through the sting of something you said. Loved ones slowly fading beneath your silence, your distraction, your good intentions. You don't mean to. But meaning doesn't undo damage. You might never know. The pain you cause could be quiet, buried, or endured in silence. You may walk through your life convinced you're helping, unaware of the wreckage trailing behind you. And the most haunting part is this: being unaware doesn't absolve you. It just means you won't see the moment when someone finally breaks, because of something you never realized you did. Reality is incomprehensibly vast, and you are incomprehensibly small. You live within a narrow tunnel of perception, measuring your world in rooms, streets, cities, lives. You wake up thinking your problems are the center of something important. But the truth is crushing. Reality is so vast, so staggeringly infinite, that your entire existence doesn't even register. The planet you call home is a tiny rock circling an average star in the outskirts of a forgettable galaxy, itself one of hundreds of billions in the observable universe. And beyond that? Possibly infinite space, infinite time, infinite universes, stacked, looping, splintering. You will never reach the edge. You will never even see a fraction of it. Your life, your fears, your dreams, your grief, your triumphs, are happening in a corner of space so small it's statistically invisible. The things that feel like everything to you, the heartbreaks, the near deaths, the sacred moments, don't even ripple across the fabric of reality. Not because they aren't real to you, but because they are immeasurably insignificant to the cosmos. And the scale only deepens the horror. Because not only are you small, you are made of things that are smaller still. Atoms, quarks, vibrations in a void. And even those may be illusions, simulated patterns dancing for no audience. You are an arrangement of dust briefly aware of itself, inside a universe that has no idea you exist. And it never will. There is no sky watching you, no cosmic force taking notes. There is only scale, unfathomable, merciless, infinite. And within it, you are a spark, a flicker, a blink, gone before the universe even knows there was something to forget. You are alone inside your head, forever. No matter how deeply you're loved, no matter how many people surround you, no matter how many words you share, there is a place within you that no one will ever reach. The inside of your mind. The private theater where your thoughts echo, your fears crawl, your memories replay, and your identity whispers itself into existence. You live there alone. Always. You can try to explain what you feel, but words are crude. You can scream your truth, but language is a filter. Even those who know you best only ever see fragments, the pieces you manage to express, the parts you allow to surface. The rest stays locked away in silence, felt only by you. Your pain, no matter how visible, is still yours alone to carry in its rawest form. So is your joy. So is your doubt. No one will ever hear your internal monologue in full. No one will ever step into your memories and see them as you saw them. No one will feel what it's like to be you. Not the exact pressure of your anxiety, not the shape of your grief, not the strange way your mind builds meaning. You can be surrounded by love, by understanding, and still feel the chill of being sealed off, like a consciousness floating in a dark sea, waving toward lights it can never truly touch. And you'll go your whole life this way, thinking, feeling, knowing, alone. You were born into that solitude, and no matter how many hands you hold, how many hearts you open, no one else can ever come inside. Not really. Not all the way. Only you will ever know what it's like to be you. Your mind can betray you at any moment. You rely on your mind more than anything else. It's your compass, your narrator, your sense of self. You trust it to tell you what's real, to remember the past accurately, to help you make choices, to protect you from harm. But beneath that trust lies a terrifying truth. Your mind is not loyal. It is not infallible. It is not even entirely yours. And at any moment, without warning, it can turn against you. One wrong chemical imbalance, one moment of trauma, one shift in sleep, hormones, injury, or stress, and the mind can begin to crack. It can convince you that people hate you, that you are worthless, that reality is warped, that you deserve to suffer. It can twist your memories, fabricate threats, erase joy, and flood your body with fear. You can wake up one day no longer recognizing yourself, and no one else can see the fracture. You could develop depression so deep that even the idea of hope feels offensive. You could slip into psychosis and believe things that aren't real, feel watched, hunted, cursed. You could lose the ability to speak, to care, to love. You could forget your family, forget your name, forget why anything mattered, and you would still be alive, watching it all happen, trapped behind the glass of your own breaking mind. There is no guarantee, no contract, no final say over what your brain will do tomorrow. The very thing that is you can become your cage, and you won't know when it begins. Only that one day, you are no longer safe in your own head, and there is nowhere else to go. You might be unable to ever truly change. You tell yourself you can become better, that with enough effort, enough time, enough willpower, you can unlearn the damage, break the cycles, rewrite the story. It's the promise that keeps you going, the belief that growth is always possible. But what if it isn't? What if, beneath all your intentions, your apologies, your goals and breakdowns, you are simply stuck, wired a certain way, shaped too early, changed too little? Maybe the parts of you you're trying to fix aren't malfunctions, they're fixtures. Maybe the anger, the fear, the numbness you keep trying to outrun aren't scars, but foundations. Maybe your patterns aren't habits, they're architecture. Your trauma doesn't ask permission to echo, and your mind, your chemistry, your body remember things long after you've tried to forget. You try to act differently, and yet the same feelings rise, the same choices sneak in, the same endings play out. And you call it failure, you blame yourself. But what if it's not about failure? What if it's about limits, the quiet, devastating truth that some things in you were carved too deep, that some versions of you cannot be rewritten, no matter how fiercely you want to? You can dress it up. You can rehearse better behaviors. You can make new plans, recite new mantras, chase new hope. But what if underneath, the same self is always waiting, watching, waiting to pull you back? What if change is a mask you wear long enough to forget it's not your face? And what if you already know that, and just keep hoping anyway? Happiness may be chemically induced and not tied to truth. You chase happiness like it's a signpost pointing towards something meaningful: love, purpose, success, fulfillment. You believe that when you feel joy, it must be because something is right, that it means you're aligned with truth, that life is good, that you are safe. But what if happiness isn't a reward for truth at all? What if it's just chemistry, a fleeting spark of neurotransmitters firing in a specific rhythm, regardless of what's real? A pill can bring joy. A drink, a needle, a flash of sunlight, a moment of touch. You can be miserable in a beautiful life and euphoric in a lie. Your brain doesn't care. It doesn't check for meaning before releasing dopamine. It doesn't ask whether the thing you're doing is authentic, ethical, lasting. It simply reacts, rewarding the pattern, not the principle. This means your deepest happiness could come from illusion, from a false belief, from manipulation, from denial. And you would never know, because your body feels it, and we're taught to trust feelings more than facts. Worse, someone else could engineer your joy, rewire your mind, feed you narratives, stimulate your brain like a machine, and you'd thank them for it. You'd beg for more, not because it's true, but because it feels right. So then, what is happiness really worth if it doesn't have to mean anything? If you can be deeply, profoundly content while living a lie? Maybe the most dangerous thing isn't that we suffer, but that we can be made to smile while everything real is burning down, and never even notice. There might be no final justice, ever. You want to believe that in the end, things will be made right, that pain will be answered, that cruelty will be punished, that those who suffered without reason will be lifted, seen, redeemed. It's what keeps us clinging to hope through the darkest parts of life, that justice, if not found here, will come eventually. If not by law, then by fate. If not by people, then by something higher, something watching. But what if no one is watching? What if there is no balancing of the scales, no reckoning, no final courtroom where truth is laid bare and wrong is undone? What if injustice isn't a temporary glitch in the system, but the system itself? The powerful may die comfortable, unrepentant. The innocent may suffer unnoticed, unmourned. Children may cry out for mercy that never comes. Monsters may be celebrated, and the dead may remain silent, unavenged, forgotten. There may be no afterlife where the wounded are healed, no universal force keeping score, no cosmic ledger where pain counts for anything more than pain. The truth might be this: what happens here is the final word, and it doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always reward the good or expose the wicked. Sometimes it just ends. And if that's true, if there is no final justice, then what do you do with all the injustice you've seen? The harm that cannot be reversed? The cruelty that was never punished? You can scream at the sky, you can whisper to gods, but the silence may be all there is. And justice, the thing you hoped was waiting, may never come. Not here, not anywhere. Society might reward sociopathy more than kindness. You're told that kindness matters, that empathy, honesty, and compassion are virtues, that they build strong communities, loving families, better futures. But step outside the story, and you begin to see the cracks. Look closely at who rises, who wins, who holds power. Often, it's not the kind. It's the cold, the calculating, the ruthless, the ones who know how to fake warmth while never truly feeling it. In the systems we've built, corporate, political, social, empathy can be a liability. It slows decision-making. It introduces guilt. It causes hesitation when ruthlessness would be more efficient. Sociopathy, detachment from other people's pain, is often a hidden advantage. It allows people to fire without flinching, lie without remorse, manipulate without shame. These are traits that, in the shadows of ambition, are not punished. They're promoted. The ability to suppress conscience is often mistaken for confidence. A lack of empathy is repackaged as leadership. Charm without sincerity becomes charisma. The world praises those who can play the game, who can climb without looking down, who can get results, regardless of the bodies left behind. Meanwhile, kindness gets labeled as weakness. Empathy is dismissed as naivety. Vulnerability is seen as a crack to exploit. So what kind of people does this world actually elevate? What kind of morality does it quietly favor? You might spend your whole life being good, believing goodness wins in the end, only to watch those without conscience sit at the top, shaping the world in their image. And the most painful part? Society may not even notice the difference. Or worse, it may prefer it. Suffering may outnumber joy in the universe. We like to believe the universe bends toward beauty, that love is more powerful than pain, that joy, in the grand equation of existence, wins. But what if that belief is a desperate illusion? What if suffering isn't a shadow, but the substance? What if across the cold vastness of time and space, there is more anguish than ecstasy, more screaming than singing, more endings than beginnings? Think of all the life that has ever existed. Not just humans, but every conscious creature capable of feeling pain. The predator mauled by prey, the orphaned infant animal, the billions of unseen beings living and dying in captivity, terror, starvation, silence. For every moment of happiness, how many lifetimes end in fear or agony? How many sentient minds never even glimpse what we call joy? Statistically, most living beings die violently or alone. Most conscious life forms, if consciousness is widespread in the universe, may exist in brutal, barren conditions where survival is pain and death comes without mercy. Even in human history, how many generations have lived entire lives never knowing peace, touched by war, disease, abuse, poverty? You may be one of the lucky ones, and you may be surrounded by quiet suffering you don't even see. There's no rule that says joy must triumph. No law that mandates happiness will prevail. The universe is not cruel. It's indifferent, and indifference does not favor bliss. So what if, in the final tally, the weight of the cosmos leans toward misery? What if consciousness, instead of being a gift, is more often a curse, a raw nerve exposed to chaos? And what if that pain is not the exception, but the norm, the default, the cost of being aware? Your deepest beliefs may be wrong. You build your identity around what you believe to be true, not just facts, but the truths, the convictions that live in your bones. What is right? What is real? What matters? These aren't just opinions to you. They are foundations. They guide your choices, shape your relationships, define your meaning. But what if they're wrong? Not a little wrong, not flawed around the edges, completely wrong. What if the values you hold most sacred were planted in you by chance, by culture, by upbringing, by repetition? Not because they're true, but because they were convenient to someone else. What if the God you worship doesn't exist? What if the good you fight for is built on a lie? What if your moral compass points confidently toward a place that doesn't even exist? You could live an entire life devoted to a cause, to an identity, to a belief system, only to realize too late that it was a story, something inherited, absorbed, never questioned deeply enough to uncover its hollow core. And if your deepest beliefs fall, what's left? Who are you without them? You've already changed beliefs before. Beliefs you once held tightly now seem naive, even absurd. So what makes you so sure the ones you cling to now aren't next? The scariest part isn't that your beliefs could be wrong. It's that you might never know. You could live, love, die for an illusion, and never once feel the moment when it all slipped away. Because sometimes the mind protects itself not with truth, but with certainty. And certainty is not a sign of being right. It's just a feeling we're addicted to. You may not have ever truly been known by anyone. You move through life building connections, friendships, love, family. You tell your stories, you share your secrets. You let people in, piece by piece, hoping that one day someone will see you, not just your face, not just the version you perform, but the raw, private self you carry behind your eyes. But what if no one ever has? What if no one ever can? No matter how close someone gets, they can only see what you give them. Your words, your actions, your reactions. The version of you filtered through tone, timing, context. But what about the thoughts you never share? The ones you don't have words for, the contradictions, the fantasies, the silent ache, the private patterns no one notices? All of it stays behind the glass. Even when you try to be vulnerable, you're translating, editing, shaping, offering up digestible pieces in the hope they'll be enough. But the whole of you? The full, unfiltered, ever-shifting mass of memory, emotion, desire, fear, that remains invisible. People see the outlines, not the core. They love the mask. Even if the mask is honest, it's still a mask. You might be surrounded by people who care about you deeply, and still feel like a stranger when you're alone. Not because they don't love you, but because they've never truly met the version of you that exists only in the silence between your thoughts. The one that doubts. The one that hides. The one that wonders if, deep down, you're too strange, too complicated, too much to ever be fully held by another human mind. And the most haunting truth? You may go your entire life without ever being truly seen, and no one will even know they missed you. All relationships may end in death or decay. You hold people close believing some bonds will last forever. You speak of always, of no matter what, of till the end. You build lives around these promises, these connections, friendships, families, loves that feel eternal. But the truth that waits quietly, always just outside your awareness, is this. Every relationship you have will either end in death or in slow, quiet decay. Sometimes the ending is violent, sudden, a crash, a diagnosis, a breath that doesn't come back. Someone is torn from your life, and the connection is severed like a snapped wire, raw, immediate, irreversible. And in the silence that follows, you're left clutching memories that can't love you back. Other times, the death is slower, a drifting, a changing. Two people who once knew each other so intimately that they could speak in glances now barely exchange messages. Friends fade, lovers grow cold, parents become strangers, not because of malice, but because people change. Time reshapes us, fractures us, pulls us in directions that no vow can withstand. And even the rare few who stay, through decades, through storms, will eventually part. One will go first, one will be left behind. Every forever is just a temporary pause in the countdown. No matter how strong the bond, how deep the love, how intertwined your lives become, you are always walking toward goodbye. And there's no way to stop it. You may spend your life searching for a connection that death cannot touch, that distance cannot weaken, that time cannot dissolve. But the truth is, every connection is made of glass. You just don't know when it will break, only that it will. Memory is unreliable, yet it forms the basis of identity. You believe you are who you remember being. A childhood shaped you. Milestones defined you. People touched your life, and you carry their echoes. But what if that entire foundation, your sense of self, your story, your you, is built on a structure that cannot be trusted? What if memory, the thing you cling to for continuity, is not a record, but a reconstruction? Your brain doesn't store perfect snapshots of the past. It stores fragments, sensations, impressions, then stitches them together each time you recall them. Every memory you revisit is edited, colored by who you are now, altered by new knowledge, buried emotions, even your mood. And each time you remember it, it changes again. You're not reliving the past, you're rewriting it. Worse, your mind can invent memories entirely. Things that never happened can feel more vivid than the truth. You can be certain of moments that were dreams or suggestions or inherited from stories someone else told. And still, they shape you. You define yourself by these unreliable moments. The pain you believe you endured, the victories you claim, the people you think you've lost. But what if they didn't happen the way you remember? What if they didn't happen at all? If memory is a lie, then identity might be an illusion built on fiction. You love based on what you think you experienced. You fear what you think hurt you. You live as the person your memory allows you to be, not necessarily the one you ever truly were. And yet you keep walking forward, carrying a self that might be no more real than a dream misremembered, believing it's solid, because without it, what's left? You can never confirm that others see colors the way you do. You look at the sky and call it blue. You see red in a rose, green in a forest, yellow in sunlight. And you assume, you trust, that everyone else sees them the same way. That when you say blue, someone else's mind conjures the same rich, familiar hue. But the truth is, you have no way of knowing. None. Not now, not ever. Because you cannot see through their eyes. You cannot step into their mind. You only hear the word, never the experience. Maybe their blue is your orange. Maybe what you call red is, to them, an entirely different sensation. But from childhood, you were all taught the same labels, so the illusion of sameness was born. A shared language built on a foundation that might be fundamentally different for each person. Color is not in the object. It's not in the light. It's in your brain, a translation of electromagnetic waves into conscious experience. And that experience is private, unreachable, inaccessible, like a locked room with no doors. You can agree on a color, name it, paint with it, live your whole life using it, and never know if anyone else sees what you see. The world around you might be tinted, shaded, and shaped by a unique internal palette no one else will ever witness. Now extend that thought. If you can't confirm color, how can you confirm any perception, any feeling, any truth of experience? You walk through life assuming shared reality. But what if everyone is living in their own isolated version of it, smiling at colors that don't exist, mourning shades you'll never perceive? And no matter how deeply you love them, you will never know. Life may be no more meaningful than rocks falling down a hill. You've been taught to believe life is sacred, full of purpose, growth, beauty, and some kind of direction. That you are here for a reason, that your choices matter, that consciousness sets you apart from everything else. But what if that's just a story your mind tells to make the chaos easier to bear? What if, at its core, life is nothing more than a natural event, a physical process, like rocks rolling down a hill, not chosen, not guided, not meant? The universe didn't plan for you. Evolution didn't design you with meaning in mind. You are the outcome of collisions, of atoms, instincts, random mutations that survived by accident. You eat to fuel the body. You desire to reproduce. You fear death to delay entropy. These aren't symbols. They're mechanics. Motion. Just like rocks falling, shaped by gravity, terrain, and time. When you strip away the poetry, when you look at life without the lens of emotion, morality, or hope, you see an organism crawling across a rock in space, trying not to die. And when it does, the world continues, just like it did before. A rock doesn't care where it lands. It doesn't cry when it breaks. It doesn't ask why it fell. It just moves until it stops. Maybe that's what life is. Maybe we only feel different because our brains evolved to suffer if we don't pretend there's something more. But maybe there isn't. Maybe your birth, your love, your pain, your death are just echoes in a geological process. Motion, momentum, dust sliding downward, and nothing watching. You may become the very thing you hate. There are people, ideas, behaviors you swear you'll never embody. Cruelty, cowardice, manipulation, selfishness. You define yourself in opposition to them. You see them in others and recoil. You say, "I'm not like that." You say, "I never will be." But what if slowly, quietly, inevitably, you already are? Or worse, what if you're on the path and don't even see it? Hate feels clean. It draws lines. It gives you moral certainty. But it's also a mirror. The more you fixate on what disgusts you, the more space it takes up inside you. You begin to define your identity by resisting it. And in doing so, you become shaped by the very thing you loathe. You adopt its tactics to fight it. You justify harm in the name of being better. You grow hard where you once were soft. You become cruel to punish cruelty. You become closed to protect against manipulation. You begin to believe that the pain you inflict is somehow righteous, because you'd never be like them. But the line is thinner than you think. And hate doesn't just distort your view of the world, it reshapes you. It rewrites your empathy, your patience, your willingness to reflect. And one day, someone may look at you and see what you swore you'd never become. Not a monster in the extreme, but a version of what once made your blood boil. Your tone, your distance, your control, your justifications. And the terrifying thing is, you may still believe you're the hero. Because the thing you hate never arrives looking like a monster. It arrives dressed in your reflection, speaking in your voice, convinced it's right. You are just a momentary pattern in chaos. You think of yourself as solid, singular, real. A you with a name, a past, a future. Someone who matters, who acts with purpose in a world that makes sense. But step back far enough, and that illusion begins to unravel. Because at the deepest level, you are not a soul, not a fixed being. You are a pattern, a brief configuration of atoms, cells, and thoughts, flickering into existence and already dissolving. The universe is chaos. Not poetic chaos, raw, violent, indifferent. Stars explode. Time stretches. Particles collide and vanish. And within this storm, for a fraction of a second, the dust organizes itself into you. A fragile symmetry. A system balanced just long enough to perceive itself and whisper, "I am." But you are no more stable than a flame. No more eternal than a ripple in a black ocean. Your body is in constant decay, rebuilding itself as it falls apart. Your thoughts, your memories, your identity, all shifting, changing, reacting. And one day soon, that pattern will break down completely. The atoms will scatter. The awareness will flicker out. The shape that was you will dissolve, and chaos will continue, unmoved, unknowing, unchanged. You weren't born with purpose. You emerged, not by design, but by chance. And everything you call your life, your fears, your hopes, your love, is a byproduct of that temporary structure trying to hold its shape in the storm. There is no permanence, no anchor, no center. You are a brief flicker of order in a void that has never cared, a beautiful accident, a momentary pattern, already fading. One random thought could ruin your peace permanently. You're going about your day, mundane, normal, maybe even happy. And then, from nowhere, a single thought appears. Uninvited, small, but sharp enough to pierce through everything. A question, a fear, a doubt. Something so simple it seems harmless, until it won't leave, until it infects you. Maybe it's a philosophical question that breaks your sense of reality. Maybe it's an intrusive image or a what-if that loops endlessly, gnawing through your certainty. Maybe it's the realization of your own mortality, the fear that you've wasted your life, the suspicion that no one truly loves you, the dread that none of this is real. It could be anything. But once it takes hold, it becomes everything. Your brain doesn't know how to let it go. It circles back, trying to solve it, reason with it, bury it. But it grows louder in the silence. What was once a fleeting flicker becomes a permanent shadow. The thought starts shaping how you see the world, how you trust, how you sleep. It carves itself into your routines, into your personality, into your identity. Not because it's true, but because it feels real. And the worst part? It could happen to anyone. There's no warning, no preparation, just one fragile moment where your guard is down, and something breaks. You try to return to who you were before, but that version of you might be gone. The thought changed you, and now, peace is something you remember, not something you feel. All it takes is one thought, one spark, and the mind, once lit with it, may never be quiet again. Your sense of self-worth may be based on illusions. You wake up each day with some idea of who you are: strong, kind, capable, broken, improving. You measure your worth through achievements, relationships, resilience. You believe there's something real at the core of that identity, a steady self beneath the shifting noise of daily life. But what if your self-worth, the very feeling that you matter, is not anchored in truth, but in illusions carefully constructed by your mind to keep you functioning? What if it's based on praise you happened to receive as a child, on roles you were told to play, on comparisons to people who were never really looking at you? What if your self-worth is built on shifting external scaffolding, success, attractiveness, usefulness, likability? If those are taken away, your job, your youth, your relationships, what remains? Maybe you tell yourself you're a good person. But would you still believe that if you'd been born in a different place, taught different values, seen yourself through different eyes? Maybe you feel important. But would you, if no one ever reflected it back to you? Your mind doesn't care if it's lying, as long as the lie helps you survive. It will convince you that you're valuable when you're not sure why. It will inflate, twist, or hide parts of you just to maintain the illusion of stability. And you will cling to that illusion, not because it's true, but because without it, you don't know who you are. What if your self-worth isn't something you found, but something you invented? A mask you forgot you were wearing. And what happens when the mask cracks, when the mirror shatters, and you're left wondering, was I ever real? Or just what I needed to believe to stay alive? There may be no cosmic justice, only chaos. You want to believe there's an order to it all, that suffering serves a purpose, that goodness is rewarded, that some invisible force is keeping score. Karma, fate, the universe, God, something that ensures balance. But what if there isn't? What if there is no cosmic ledger, no ultimate fairness waiting at the end of it all? What if everything that happens, every joy, every tragedy, is just chaos wearing the mask of meaning? Children die before they understand what life is. The wicked thrive. The kind are forgotten. Entire lives are built on luck, born into safety or suffering based on geography, genetics, or timing. You see patterns because your mind needs to. It strings together narratives from randomness, finds purpose in pain. But that doesn't mean it's there. Meaning may be something we invent, not something we discover. The universe does not care who is kind. The stars don't burn brighter for the brokenhearted. There are no rules that say justice must prevail. There is only chance, physics, entropy, forces without conscience, without mercy. You might live a good life and still be crushed under the weight of someone else's mistake. Or worse, no one's mistake at all. You are surrounded by complexity and convinced it must serve a purpose. But it might not. The forces shaping your life may be blind. There may be no plan, no punishment, no reward, just a roulette wheel spinning in the dark. And if that's true, then justice isn't coming. Not later. Not ever. There is only what you do with the small flame of your life while it still flickers, before chaos, indifferent, absolute, blows it out. Your capacity to love or hate could vanish with a brain injury. You believe your emotions are part of who you are, deep, untouchable forces that define you. You say you love your partner, your child, your friends. You know what you hate, what enrages you, what disgusts you. These feelings seem so profound, so permanent, so you. But the terrifying truth is this: a small shift in blood, in tissue, in the fragile architecture of your brain, and all of it could disappear. A stroke, a tumor, a traumatic blow, a moment of pressure in just the wrong place. That's all it takes for the emotional center of your mind to distort or go dark. There are documented cases of people who, after a brain injury, stopped loving their spouses, who felt no sorrow at the death of a parent, who lost the ability to recognize anger or empathy or joy, not because they chose to, but because the machinery broke. You could wake up tomorrow and not feel what you've always felt. The faces that once made your heart race could leave you cold. The causes you once fought for could seem meaningless. The very fire that made you, you could vanish, and you would still be alive, still breathing, but hollowed out, like a ghost wearing your skin. And what does that mean about love? About hate? About identity? If something as sacred as love can be flipped off like a switch, chemical, electrical, anatomical, then maybe it was never eternal. Maybe it was never spiritual. Maybe it was just functionality. A program that ran until the circuit shorted. And if the brain can take it all away in a moment, then maybe you are not who you think you are. You are who your brain lets you be. We may never answer life's most important questions. You search for meaning because you have to. You ache to understand why you're here, what death truly is, whether love is eternal, whether consciousness continues or simply ends. These questions burn at the core of you. They shape your faith, your choices, your identity. But what if the answers, the real ones, are forever out of reach? What if the limits of the human mind make certain truths permanently unknowable? What if the structure of reality is just beyond our grasp, like a language we were never wired to speak? We build theories, write scriptures, stare into microscopes and telescopes, chase revelation across centuries, but all we find are approximations, guesses, shadows on the wall of a cave we can't leave. What happens when you die? Why does anything exist at all? Is there a purpose, or are we just dust caught in gravity's drift? These aren't puzzles with missing pieces. They might be walls with no door. And yet we keep asking, because we need answers to justify the weight of our suffering, the depth of our joy, the fear of our endings. But what if those answers never come? Not because they're hidden, but because they don't exist in a way we can comprehend. You might die without ever knowing if your life had meaning, if love was more than chemicals, if anyone, anywhere, was listening when you whispered your questions into the dark. And that silence? That endless, unanswered silence? It might be all there is. The most important questions may never be resolved. Not tomorrow, not in 1,000 years, not ever. Only asked, and asked, and asked, until we disappear.